Chapter 218. When Guazi opened his mouth, Yang Yi secretly nodded. This voice was indeed suitable for singing this song. He didn't waste his efforts in changing the title of the song from High School Days to University Days. Ding Xiang couldn't help but gently shake her head. When Yang Yi wrote this song for Guazi and taught him how to sing it, Ding Xiang was also present. However, as she wasn't very interested in music, she didn't pay much attention to it. Only now did she realize that it was actually so good. After all, humans were vain creatures. Du Yuanlei was no exception. Although she didn't like Guazi and hated this kind of behavior of confessing to her in public, when Guazi sang this song, Du Yuanlei couldn't help but feel her heart beat faster. Of course, the premise was that she didn't look at the little fatty and only listened to the song with her ears perked up. Actually, it wasn't that she hadn't heard Guazi sing this song before. During the first 2 rehearsals, Guazi had sung it before. However, the problem was that at that time, Guazi didn't say that this song was for her. With this layer of relationship, the song sounded a little different. Hiding in the corner secretly, crying. Who cried before? When Du Yuanlei heard this part, she couldn't help but snort. That wasn't right at all. She thought of herself as a strong woman. No, it should be said that she was a queen. How could she cry? And hide in the corner? Alright, perhaps when she first entered university, Du Yuanlei would still cry over some grievances. However, later on, after experiencing a failed relationship and complicated film work, Du Yuanlei understood a principle. Don't lower your head, the crown will fall. Don't cry, the bad people will laugh. So, who would cry? I'm melancholy. Who will understand you? What was she thinking? The person who sang this song was a disgusting fatty. Du Yuanlei forced herself to shake off the feelings in her head that had long disappeared along with the unforgettable love and focused on listening to the song. What is love? I don't know. I don't understand forever. I don't understand myself. Guazi didn't know that he had already been placed in the category of impossible. He was still intoxicated by the song. He sang about love in an ethereal voice. The lyrics were a little heartbreaking. Some of the freshmen present might not have felt anything, but those who had experienced it before, as well as many of the older students who had come to watch, felt uncomfortable in their hearts. They felt that Guazi had voiced out their inner thoughts. What is love? Would they be able to hold each other's hands forever, just like the first pledge of eternal love? I can't. So, we think we love, we know what love is, but in reality, we don't know anything. Guazi's performance on stage was obviously worse than Tang Kaitai's. Even if he didn't have stage fright, when he sang seriously, he didn't have any intention of interacting with the audience and only focused on singing. But this was also a sincere voice that could easily move people. Hiding the Lily Diary, in the bag, my innocent you. At the end of the song, Guazi followed Yang Yi's score and used a sweep to make the melody come to an abrupt end. It was as if he had really put away his love, as if in the whole world, only his heavy singing was left. The only one in my life. With the only hum, it was as if everything had returned to the beginning, and the prelude loop melody sounded again. It was as if love had come back and had a new beginning, but it was still over. The last loop was heavily clicked, and the stadium was only left with the slight trembling of the strings. The song was over, but the students in the audience were still not satisfied. Just like Qianli Chuanchu's show, the audience once again set off a wave of encore, which was not common. Guazi carried the guitar behind his back and returned to his original smiling face, as if the one who was focused and deep when singing just now was not him. Encore, encore, I don't have a second song to sing for Director Du. He laughed and helped the host to calm everyone's emotions. Then sing it again, this song is very good. The students in the audience also laughed, and some guys cheered. That won't do, I'm singing for Senior Du Yuanlei, and my vitality has been exhausted. If you want to listen to it, you can rebroadcast it on the campus TV or buy the party CD made by Senior Du. Guazi pointed to the camera that was being swung down by the swing arm and laughed. In fact, the school still needed to pay the Copyright Association. Singing other people's songs at the party, as long as it was not profitable, there was no problem. But if the school made a CD and sold it, the school had to pay the Copyright Association to ensure the rights of the songwriter. Even though Guazhi had given other solutions, the students still did not let him go. Fortunately, the host came to the rescue. They introduced the next program, which was a solo dance performed by Qin Wen. Only then did the audience who were anxious to see the beauty and the celebrity stop their heckling. Seeing that Guazhi did not forget to make a heart gesture in the direction of Du Yuanlei, Yang Yi shook his head slightly. He smiled and said to Ding Xiang, "After today's incident, I'm afraid that Guazhi will become a famous person on campus in the future, right?" Ding Xiang sighed. "I'm a little regretful that I gave him this idea." "Why?" "I'm afraid that he will be beaten up on the road tomorrow." Ding Xiang snickered. Yang Yi was dumbfounded. He did not know that Ding Xiang, who was usually serious, had such a funny side. At this time, Shi, who was comfortably leaning in her father's arms, pulled her father's lapel, pouted and asked, "Papa, Uncle Gua sang very well, why didn't they let him sing?" "It's not that they didn't let him sing, it's because there are other shows. Uncle Gua only needs to sing one song," Yang Yi said. "The other shows are not good, Papa, let's go home, okay? I'm sleepy." The little girl rubbed her eyes and said softly in her father's arms. "What time is it?" Yang Yi asked and answered his own question. He looked at his watch. "It's almost 10 o'clock?" "Yes, she still needs to listen to the story and sleep." She took her father's hand and poked her father's watch with her finger. Yang Yi also had the intention to leave. He said to Ding Xiang, "Cici hasn't taken a shower yet, and it's getting cold outside at night. I won't watch it anymore. I'll take her back first. Do you want to finish watching it, or do you want to leave together?" Ding Xiang hesitated, looked at the little dancing star on the stage. She still chose to leave with Yang Yi, although she was going back to the dormitory. In fact, she still wanted to watch the show, but entertainment was a luxury for Ding Xiang now. She did not have so much time to enjoy it. After going back, she had to take a bath and wash clothes, and then review her lessons. Tomorrow, she had to get up early to go to class and work in the coffee shop. Just like Guazhi just sang, "What is love?" I don't know, Ding Xiang was the same. Love might hurt an idealistic girl like Du Yuanlei, but it was difficult to hurt her, because Ding Xiang also did not have time to think about love. First, work hard to make money so that grandma can have money to cure the disease. Chapter 219. Obviously, Guazhi's song didn't move Du Yuanlei. Perhaps Du Yuanlei said something after the party. The next day, Guazhi ran to the coffee shop with a depressed face to seek comfort. "I'm heartbroken." Yang Yi's face was indifferent. He didn't know how to comfort people, let alone a man. However, Ding Xiang was kind enough to bring out a small piece of cake that she was still learning and experimenting with. She used the delicious food to comfort the little fatty's wounded heart. "Hey, delicious. Senior sister, when will you learn this skill? You can even sell it out." Guazhi ate the sweet and greasy cake. His eyes were shining. The shadow of heartbreak was all driven out. He shouted that he wanted to eat more. He used his actions to prove the meaning of the word, happy and fat. He also proved that Yang Yi was right not to comfort him. "I can't continue to let you eat. These ingredients were bought by Brother Yang for me to learn how to make pastries. If you want to eat in the future, you have to pay for it. It will be written on the menu." Ding Xiang righteously refused, and then asked in a low voice, "Is it really delicious?" "I'm afraid I can't make it well." She couldn't let she try the experimental products she made before. Yang Yi also didn't have a hobby for desserts. He just used a small silver spoon to taste a little bit. Most of the time, Ding Xiang made it herself. Even if she failed before, she was reluctant to throw it away. She would take it back and eat it. However, she didn't have any psychological burden to let Guazhi be a lab rat. Guazhi was lucky enough to taste Ding Xiang's successful works. Okay. Later, you can discuss the price with Brother Yang and write it on the blackboard." Guazhi was drooling and said, "I can't wait to eat another piece." After waiting for a long time, Li Manman finally received an email reply from Mu Xiang. However, Mu Xiang's response was different from what she expected. The other party didn't lose his soul because of her soft words. After listening to a few of your albums, your results are getting better year after year, but your singing skills are getting worse year after year. Even the recording studio can't cover up your lack of tolerance. So, why do you have to rack your brains to tempt me to write songs for you? Train your basic skills well and spend more effort on your own abilities. It's better than you trying to take shortcuts. The email was not long, but Mu Xiang's criticism of her was merciless. It was as if he had stripped away all her disguises and exposed all her scars. Looking at the email, Li Manman's expression could be said to be uncertain. Sadness, resentment, unwillingness, suspicion, jealousy, and so on, all kinds of negative emotions were intertwined. Yi Chi, who received Li Manman's call, finally came. The moment Yi Chi pushed open the door, Li Manman put on an aggrieved expression and complained tearfully, "Sister Yi, come and see, this email is too much. I don't even know if it was written by Mu Xiang. I suspect that the B*TCH Murphy purposely hid it from me and refused to give me the real address. Then, she made up the email to provoke me." Yi Chi comforted Li Manman and carefully looked at the email. As a bystander, Yi Chi looked at the email and actually had a little idea. The email wasn't wrong. Li Manman did have these problems, but the problem was that Li Manman wasn't the kind of person who humbly listened to other people's criticism. This woman was very smart. She was very good at using her strengths to fight for her own interests. But she had always valued her strengths too much. She thought that she was beautiful, pleasant, and knew how to manipulate a man's bad thoughts. These were enough to replace all her efforts. So, Li Manman ignored her own shortcomings. Especially after she became famous, even if it couldn't be seen from the outside, in fact, she had already become arrogant. In the past, her agent persuaded her to focus on her music and not put too much thought into currying favor. He dissuaded Li Manman and caused their relationship to break. So, the company arranged Yi Chi to take care of her. Yi Chi and Li Manman had some similar ideas. She never persuaded Li Manman. Instead, she tried her best to explore Li Manman's potential in some aspects. She let her sing fast songs and dance some sexy dances. The effect was still there. Li Manman's current popularity couldn't be separated from Yi Chi's operation. Yi Chi was very smart. Even if she had already guessed that this email was indeed written by Mu Xiang, she wouldn't refute Li Manman's words. Instead, she gently put her hand on Li Manman's shoulder and softly said, "Yes or no, what impact does it have on the result? If Murphy really has such a deep scheme to fool us, I'm afraid she won't admit it even if we go to question her. And if this is really Mu Xiang's reply, with his tone, I'm afraid it's difficult for him to approve of you, let alone write a song for you." Yi Chi said softly. "So no matter what, I can't let Mu Xiang write a song for me?" Li Manman asked unwillingly. The company's teacher Wu has analyzed Mu Xiang's music. Although the styles of his songs in the market are not the same, one thing is certain. Mu Xiang's songs are not easy to sing. If it's not Chan Yijie and Murphy who are famous for their singing skills, I'm afraid that if it's someone else, they won't be able to sing it well. Yi Chi avoided the sharp edge. Li Manman nodded. She was smart enough to understand the agent's meaning. Although she was still somewhat unwilling in her heart, she still smiled and said, "Well, since Sister Yi said it so clearly, I don't need to continue to brood over it. Isn't it just a Mu Xiang? I don't care about it." "That's right. You have to believe in the company. The company has spent a lot of effort to cultivate you, so we will definitely do our best to collect songs for you. Without Mu Xiang, we still have Yidong Xiang, Zhou Xiang. We will definitely release a platinum album for you," Yi Chi said. Li Manman smiled sweetly, but there was a gloomy light hidden in her eyes. Murphy wanted to record songs with a peace of mind, but it was obviously difficult to do so. Last time, she was arranged to be on the program Fast Music Fast Music. Although it hadn't been broadcast yet, Sister Ling still got feedback from the Guangdong Province TV station. Naturally, this feedback wasn't what Niu Meiling wanted to see. The effect could be said to be the complete opposite of what she had expected. Mo Fei's "I Came Across the Sea to See You" was very popular with the audience at the scene. It was completely predictable what kind of popularity the show would have after it was broadcasted. There were even some clues about it in the media reports. Niu Meiling thought about it for a few days. During this time, she didn't discuss it with anyone, but silently calculated by herself. Finally, one day, Niu Meiling called Murphy over. Taking advantage of Mo Xiaojuan's absence from the company, she bypassed Mo Xiaojuan and directly talked to Murphy about the contract renewal. "Murphy, you also know how the company and Sister Ling treat you. For so many years, Sister Ling has protected you like a daughter. Even if you had a child and insisted on retiring from the music industry, Sister Ling didn't stop you." Niu Meiling spoke with emotion and moved with reason. She was emotional, and her eyes were red as she persuaded Murphy. Chapter 220. That's the situation. What do you think we should do? At the dinner table, Murphy rested her chin on her hand as she looked at Yang Yi with sparkling eyes. Niu Meiling talked about their friendship and sighed as she confessed to Murphy about the company's predicament for the past 2 years. In the end, she took out a contract to let Murphy renew, but it wasn't the contract that Murphy had originally signed. Of course, she wasn't too unreliable. She didn't use some deceptive rookie contract to trick Mo Fei. This contract was even better than Zhen Zhen's. It could be considered as a second-tier contract, second only to the top contract. However, the term of the contract was not short. It was originally supposed to be 5 years, but Niu Meiling changed it to 7 years. However, Murphy didn't know why, but recently, she felt that Niu Meiling's smile was a bit fake. Murphy felt that Sister Ling was no longer as amiable as before. She was both a teacher and a friend. Instead, she felt that there was a lot of estrangement. Although she was still reminded of the beautiful memories of the past by Niu Meiling, when she saw this contract, Mo Fei woke up and her mind was very calm. According to what Sister Ling said, the company's operations were in trouble and needed her to share the joys and sorrows, so a second-tier contract wasn't impossible. However, Murphy faintly felt that something was wrong. Her contract still had nearly a year before it expired. Why was Sister Ling suddenly so anxious? Could it be that someone was preparing to poach her? However, Sister Ling should know that she, Murphy, had always been loyal to Tian Mei. When her platinum album successfully reached the top, there were also other major record companies who wanted to poach her and train her to become a pillar of the industry. The conditions they offered were amazing even now, but Mo Fei still chose to stay, and she immediately renewed her contract with Tian Mei, which was to say, she signed a contract extension. Murphy didn't want to think too badly of Niu Meiling. After all, Sister Ling was her talent scout, so she couldn't understand the reason behind this. Fortunately, Murphy wasn't stupid. She was still a little smart. When Mo Fei was in a dilemma, she did not sign the contract under Niu Meiling's persuasion. Instead, Mo Fei chose to shelve the request of renewing the contract. That night, Murphy was not in the mood to work overtime to record songs. Instead, she called Yang Yi to pick her up. After dinner, she discussed the matter with Yang Yi. "Why are you asking me?" Yang Yi asked in surprise. "Can't I discuss it with you?" Murphy bit her lower lip and asked unhappily. "Of course, I can't wait to help you." Yang Yi smiled. "But don't you usually discuss things with Xiaowan about Tian Mei?" "If you ask Xiaowan, she'll definitely say she doesn't want to sign a contract with Sister Ling." Xiaowan has a lot of prejudice against Sister Ling, Jian Chua, and the company's management. "I know she's doing this for my own good, but I hope you can give me some good advice," Murphy said. Unfortunately, Murphy didn't know that the person she asked had already been roped in by Mo Xiaowan. But Yang Yi didn't give Murphy a direct answer. Instead, he asked, "What do you think? Do you want to stay in Tian Mei?" Murphy hesitated for a moment. She gently nodded and said, "If the company isn't what I'm worried about, if Sister Ling and the others aren't in a bad state, I still want to stay in Tian Mei. After all, they've helped me a lot before." "Actually, you see it very clearly. You just don't want to admit it in your heart." Sister Ling is no longer the Sister Ling you knew before. And this company doesn't treat you as well as before, right? Yang Yi smiled and said straightforwardly. For example, when you returned, the album they chose for you. Can't you see what kind of songs they chose for you? Mo Fei bit her lower lip, and her face became gloomy. Another example is the meeting you told me before. Mu Xiong wrote 12 songs for you. In the end, they wanted to snatch all of them. They only took a large part of it, not all of it. Murphy weakly defended herself. You fool. Yang Yi grabbed Murphy's hand and wrapped it in his big hand. He said softly, what's the difference between snatching a part of it or all of it? More importantly, didn't you tell me that Sister Ling didn't speak up for you, but instead advised you to compromise? Murphy gently nodded. Your Sister Ling didn't think for your own good. Then why do you still want to think for their own good? Why do you have to wrong yourself to sign a bad contract? Yang Yi asked. Murphy didn't feel good in her heart, but she still lowered her eyebrows and said softly, because I can only be considered a C or D-list celebrity. I'm not qualified to sign a contract and the company's situation isn't good. Tianmei's situation is very good. At least it's not as bad as Sister Ling lied to you. Yang Yi said firmly, and as for whether you're qualified to sign a contract, I think your Sister Ling knows. Otherwise, she wouldn't have shamelessly come to you in advance to renew the contract. Isn't she just afraid that after your new album comes out, you'll become popular again? It was as if a thin film had been pierced. Yang Yi's repeated questions completely defeated Murphy's last bit of hope in human nature, allowing her to see the truth that she didn't want to believe before. Yang Yi's hand was tightly grasped by Murphy. She was a little hesitant. Then what should I do? What if the company forces me to sign a contract? Do you still want to stay in Tianmei? Yang Yi asked again. Murphy gently nodded and then shook her head. I don't want to leave, but I also don't want to renew the contract with Sister Ling, Murphy said. She was now very confused about her future. Then you can wait for the contract to end. Then we'll open our own studio and write your name. Yang Yi gently rubbed Murphy's hand and said, let's open it in Tingshan district and find some people to serve you. In the future, you'll live at home. I'll send Shi to kindergarten and send you to work. I'll pick you up at night. You don't have to rush to commercial performances, nor do you have to rush to jobs. You just need to sing your songs, have a concert, or pick some variety shows that you like to play. Murphy was tempted by Yang Yi's words. She was really looking forward to this kind of life. In the past few months, she had been sitting on a plane to a strange city every day. She was very tired. Or every night, she would return to a house without her daughter and without Yang Yi by her side. She was very lonely. The daily life that Yang Yi described to her was the life she wanted to live. She even forgot about her ties with Tianmei and Sister Ling and seriously considered this possibility. But, if I don't run commercial performances, how will I have money? I don't have much money left. Living abroad with she is very expensive. I might not be able to support the studio for more than a few months. Murphy asked worriedly. Yang Yi was dumbfounded. Murphy really asked a question that she shouldn't be worried about. There's still me. Silly, you're with me. Isn't my money your money? Yang Yi asked. Your money? Do you have a lot of money? Mo Fei asked confusedly. In fact, she didn't have the intention to take care of money. Money was just a row of numbers in the bank account for her. Even after she got together with Yang Yi, she didn't even think about taking her boyfriend's bank card and holding it for him like other women. In her impression, Yang Yi wrote novels. Perhaps he had more money than before, but he still had to run the coffee shop and raise Shi. How much money could he have left? Chapter 221. I'm really rich. Yang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He explained to Murphy the source of his income, and reluctantly let Murphy recognize the concept that he was very rich. However, Murphy was still a little worried. Yang Yi, the entertainment circle may be different from what you think. It can't be solved by money. For example, when I release an album, we need to collect songs, hire producers, do promotion, and so on. The most important thing is that we need the support of the company's resources. Not every time there is a songwriter like Mu Ziyang to write a whole album of songs for me. It doesn't matter. You can trust me. Mu Ziyang will write songs for you next time. Yang Yi smiled. He put his right hand's fingers together and cut down. He said half-jokingly, "I'll put a kitchen knife on his neck and see if he wants to." "You're talking nonsense." Murphy couldn't help laughing and said, "If you do that, let alone Mu Ziyang, no one will write songs for me in the future." "I'm just kidding." Yang Yi patted Murphy's hand and said with a smile, "Anyway, whether it's the problem of songs or the studio, you don't have to worry about it. I have a way to help you solve it." Even if it was the most troublesome issue of album distribution, Yang Yi actually had a way. He had a good relationship with Tianxiong Records in Harbor City. At worst, he could write 2 more songs for Channy Jie and do them a favor. They would not refuse to help. "I'll take care of everything," Yang Yi said softly. Murphy felt warm in her heart. Although reason told her that Yang Yi, a guy who had nothing to do with the entertainment circle, was just a male chauvinist, her emotions were still touched. There was an impulse like the wild grass in spring. Murphy's eyes were a little red, and there seemed to be something flowing in her bright eyes. Her hand that was holding Yang Yi became warm and wet. Yang Yi had already known Murphy's depth. How could he not see her emotional performance? If it weren't for his daughter, this dining table would have become their fiery battlefield as long as they swept away the pots and pans with one hand. However, Shishi's existence turned all these crazy ideas into bubbles. The little girl appeared at the right time and interrupted the emotions that her parents had just been brewing. "Papa, Papa. Xiao Hui and Dodo are not obedient. They are pooping on the balcony." The little girl ran over and complained. She started shouting from afar. Looking at Yang Yi's helpless expression, Murphy pursed her lips and snickered, her face flushed red. Yang Yi looked at Murphy's snickering. He pinched her delicate nose and said, "Come to my room tonight." Shishi had already run over. She took her father's hand and pulled him to the balcony while saying, "Papa, come and see. Little Gray and Dondo are pooping on the balcony again." "How do you know it's Xiao Hui and Dudu? Where's Xiao Guai?" Yang Yi asked with a smile. "Xiao Guai is very obedient. It won't go to the balcony," Shishi quickly explained. Under the lead of Shishi, Yang Yi came to the balcony and found the 2 black things. One was on the floor, and the other was in the flower pot. They were different in shape and color. "Xiao Hui, Dudu, come here and identify them. See if this is what you did." Yang Yi turned his head and shouted. Dudu, who was squatting on the cat tree, glanced at its owner, turned its head lazily and went into the artificial cave, leaving only its butt outside. On the other hand, Little Gray was the most active. It wagged its tail and slowly walked over. Xiao Guai also followed behind it. "Xiao Hui, did you poop on these 2 Xiao Guai?" Yang Yi asked with a smile. She saw Xiao Guai running over. She bent down and picked it up. She habitually scratched Xiao Guai's chin and pouted. "It's definitely not Xiao Guai, right? Xiao Guai is so obedient." Xiao Guai rubbed its little master's palm intimately, thinking that the little master wanted to play with it again. Xiao Hui, who was too smart for his own good, let out a meow and circled around Yang Yi's feet. He even rubbed against Yang Yi's feet in a fawning manner. Finally, he stretched out his claws and hooked onto his master's trousers in an attempt to make him walk away. "Don't look. Don't I care about my face?" Xiao Hui seemed to be acting coquettishly. "It seems that it's you." Yang Yi smiled and squatted down. He held Xiao Hui's big round face and flicked its forehead gently. Actually, he didn't use much strength. He just wanted to scare this naughty guy. Xiao Hui was in pain. It meowed and struggled to get away. Then, it squatted aside and rubbed its head against its paws. It seemed that it was still in pain. "Hey, don't hit it. Cats are not humans. They don't understand what you're saying." Murphy walked over and squatted down to comfort Xiao Hui. I didn't use much strength, did I? Yang Yi scratched his head. Cats are very sensitive. If you hit it, it will be scared of you next time and won't play with you. Murphy explained. They don't poop in their own toilet. Maybe it's because you haven't changed their cat litter for too long. Xiao Guai, who was in Shishi's arms, was also restless. While she wasn't holding it firmly, it twisted its body and kicked Shishi's belly. Then, it jumped down from Shishi. Xiao Guai, where are you going? Sisi hurriedly chased after her and went back to the living room. She had forgotten that she had come to complain to her father just now. She giggled and took out the little plastic ball that wrapped the bell and started playing with Xiao Guai. Ling ling ling. As soon as this magical object appeared, it immediately attracted the attention of all the kittens. Even Shido jumped down from the cat tree. Xiao Hui didn't care about its grievance. It jumped out of Murphy's arms and chased after it. Yang Yi and Murphy cleaned up the mess. He swept the 2 balls of cat poop into the trash bag and wiped the floor several times. Murphy helped to change the cat litter in the 3 cat toilets. After all, cats were felines and had a strong sense of territory. Although they were siblings, Xiao Hui and the others would never share the same toilet with their siblings. Therefore, Yang Yi bought a cat toilet with a roof for each of them. This kind of cat toilet with an enclosed space was very popular with the 3 British Shorthairs when it was first bought. After a period of training, they were used to using the cat toilet. However, they were pooping outside today, which made Yang Yi a little confused. Murphy explained to Yang Yi, actually, you often clean their poop, but it's not good if you don't give them new cat litter. Over time, the cats will dislike it because the old cat litter already has a smell. Cat litter is a kind of consumable. Every time you use our special shovel to clean their poop, you have to remember to remove the stained cat litter and add new cat litter. This way, the cats will be willing to continue pooping in the cat toilet. This time, Murphy simply poured all the cat litter in the 3 cat toilets into the trash bag that Yang Yi brought over. Then, Yang Yi came over with a heavy bag of cat litter and refilled the cat toilet. After a while, facing the cat toilet in the corner of the study, Xiao Guai, Dao Dao, and Xiao Hui stood in a row. At this moment, the restless Xiao Hui was lying down obediently. Shishi brought a small stool and naughtily sat in a row with the kittens. She looked at her mother with a smile. Murphy was not as fierce as Yang Yi. She picked up the kittens one by one. Even Dao Dao, who was the coldest, narrowed its eyes and enjoyed Murphy's affection. Murphy stroked its thin hair and pointed to the cat toilet. She said softly, "This is Dao Dao's toilet. In the future, you have to be obedient and poo in the toilet. If you are obedient, Mom will reward you." Sisi sat on a small stool, twisting back and forth as if she was playing with a wooden horse. Unwilling to be left out, she called out, "Where's mine? What about me?" Chapter 222. Time passed quietly, and in the blink of an eye, it was the golden month of October. Jiangqing Media University didn't have the fragrance of melons and fruits, but it was also full of falling petals. The cool autumn wind blew the brilliant golden petals all over the ground, evoking the romantic feelings of many students. In this season, there were people confessing, people falling in love, and people falling out of love. However, these had nothing to do with Yang Yi. Yang Yi only knew that this was a good season for taking photos. Taking advantage of one weekend, he excitedly picked up the SLR camera and let Shishi step on the crisp fallen leaves to take many photos of people with beautiful depth of field on the beautiful campus road of Jiangchuan. Although it wasn't a film camera and he couldn't make a darkroom to develop the photos, Yang Yi still spent a lot of money to buy a big machine and use professional photo paper to print out these digitally formatted photos. Ever since Ding Xiang took over the coffee shop, Yang Yi had time to play with these gadgets. Not only would he print out palm-sized highlights that could be put into the family photo album, but now he was also playing with high-end large-sized photos. He used professional matte photo paper to print them. Although they were still in color, there was an obvious graininess and a strong artistic aura. These photo papers were very expensive. Yang Yi only chose the good-looking ones and printed some. He used special solid wood frames and transparent glass to frame them. He either used a stand to put them on his desk or hung them on the wall at home with nails. He also specially chose the one he was most proud of. It was a photo of she looking up in the background of golden fallen leaves. She was a little surprised to see a small animal jumping on the tree next to her. This cute side profile was captured by her father. He took it downstairs to the coffee shop and placed it on the shelf next to his exclusive booth. When a familiar customer asked about it, Yang Yi proudly told him, "This is my daughter. I took the photo." Yes, it was taken on the small slope in Zhongchuan. The coffee shop's business gradually entered a stable period. After all, due to the location, and the fact that coffee was just a new thing for most China students, it was okay to experience it. Not many people were willing to spend dozens of yuan to drink a cup of expensive freshly ground coffee every day. Not to mention the coffee shop's new product, the baked cupcakes. Under Yang Yi's inspiration, Ding Xiang gave up on the complicated pudding and multi-layer cake. Instead, she developed cupcakes that had a wide variety of styles but were simple and convenient to make. Cupcakes could be made with all the ingredients in one go, then poured into multiple paper cups and baked together in the oven. After that, all they needed to do was to let it cool down and squeeze some cream on top before inserting slices of strawberries or other fruits. However, even though the introduction of the cupcakes had slightly increased the income of the coffee shop, the number of customers in the coffee shop had not increased. This made Ding Xiang a little depressed. It wasn't that the cupcakes couldn't be sold out. Every night, the glutton Guazi would run over and buy all the remaining cupcakes that couldn't be sold out for supper. Ding Xiang had no choice but to sell them. But the problem was not the sales of the cupcakes. Ding Xiang wanted the popularity of the coffee shop to increase. Yang Yi didn't interfere, nor did he comfort Ding Xiang. He saw everything and let Ding Xiang do her own thing. Yang Yi didn't care about whether the coffee shop's business was good or bad. He was very interested in seeing Ding Xiang's growth and changes. It was like an anthropology teacher doing a project about macaques. An opportunity was stuffed into the hands of a girl who used to live a poor life, who had to run for 3 meals every day, and who had a trace of inferiority in her eyes when she interacted with others. What kind of miracle would she create? Yang Yi didn't know, but he felt that it would be very interesting to continue watching like a bystander. So when Ding Xiang said to him in frustration, "I know all the customers who come every day, and I can even name them. But I haven't seen any new customers for a week." Yang Yi smiled but didn't say anything. In fact, it wasn't that there weren't any new customers in the past week. Yesterday there were 2 people. For Ding Xiang, they were new customers, but for Yang Yi and the coffee shop, they were old customers. Ding Xiang didn't count them. 1,000 Miles Creek Tree. These 2 people were here to say goodbye. Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan applied for a leave of absence from the school, and then prepared to go to Xiongnan to report to the entertainment agency they signed with. But for some reason, the day before they left, they thought of Yang Yi, the owner of the coffee shop whom they had only met once. The 2 took their guitars and what little pocket money they had with them to the coffee shop. They ordered the most expensive coffee and Ding Xiang's new cupcakes. "Boss, we came this time to thank you. Thank you for the encouragement you gave us when we were still a little confused about the path we chose. Also, thank you for the guidance you gave to our songs." Lu Xiaoshu spoke again, and Miao Chuan nodded at the side. "You 2 are too serious." Yang Yi didn't feel that what he said was important. He smiled and waved his hand, saying, "At that time, didn't you already earn your first income through commercial performances? Actually, you just didn't have much confidence in your looks, but deep in your hearts, didn't you already have the determination to walk this path? My words are just icing on the cake." Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan knew that Yang Yi didn't care much about money, and they couldn't give Yang Yi anything in return, so they were at a disadvantage. So this time, they came with their modified representative work, "I Miss Her in the Northern Winter," and wanted to sing it for Yang Yi. This is our modified version. It was also because of your guidance that we were able to use this song to move the talent scouts and have the opportunity to become artists. So before we leave, we hope to sing this song for you, so that you can listen to the song's melody become purer under your guidance. Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan didn't know that Yang Yi had already heard their song at the freshman's party, but Yang Yi didn't point it out, and raised his hand to signal them to sing. I'm lost in the northern winter, wandering in the boundless wilderness, looking at a few flocks of geese flying away, thinking of her. That face that can't come back. Lu Xiaoshu's boundless and clean singing voice mixed with Miao Chuan's voice, slowly reverberating in the coffee shop. At this moment, there were only a few customers in the coffee shop. The empty coffee shop seemed to have its own surround sound, and the unplugged singing actually had the effect of a recording studio. Ding Xiang couldn't help but stop the filter in her hand and listen. Don't ask me when I can cross the mountains and rivers, cross the grasslands, and come to your side. Because that is today. Similar to University Days, the ending was a simple melody loop, and the voice gradually became softer until the ring finger that was plucking the strings finally stopped. Qian Li Chuanshu left. Just like their song, crossing the mountains and rivers, they would go to another place and start their new musical journey. Yang Yi wasn't optimistic about their dropping out of school to join a management company, nor was he optimistic about their prospects of entering the music and entertainment industry without much training, but he didn't say anything to remind them. After all, they had already signed a contract, and their ambitions were uncertain. The first time they met, they were acquaintances, and the second time they met, they could be considered friends. Then, I wish you all the best, friends. Chapter 223. Southwest Wanshan was a dense forest. The continuous mountain ranges were wrapped in thick vegetation, forming a mass of green tombs. Even the cliffs were mottled with moss. Thick moisture shrouded this originally beautiful world. In the dense forest, sunlight could not penetrate. It was so damp and gloomy that it was more like a tomb that buried all living things. This had once been a nightmare for the army trained on the plains. Today, there was a group of Jiangnan troops walking here. Their steps were not difficult. Even when they encountered obstacles, their hands, which were wearing tactical gloves, propped themselves up on the fallen withered trees and slithered over silently like a snake. It was as if they had long adapted to this kind of climate and environment. The scout in the lead raised his fist, and his comrades who were marching separately behind him became vigilant. They raised the rifles in their hands and paid attention to the movements around them. What's the situation? When a scout ran over, a man with the same camouflage makeup on his face asked in a low voice. I don't know yet. Debeo feels that something is wrong. Be alert. The commander nodded. He still trusted Gua Debeo's sixth sense. However, at this moment, gunshots suddenly rang out. One by one, the heavily camouflaged leaf people hung down from the trees like apes, the rifles in their hands spraying red flames wantonly. Although they were already very vigilant, they did not expect a crisis to fall from the sky. The soldiers from Jiangnan emitted red light and helplessly fell to the ground. Of course, not everyone was immediately eliminated. There were a few who were skilled and nimble. When they heard the movement, they immediately turned around and found cover. However, it was too late for them to counterattack. Their cover was immediately covered by a well-trained rain of bullets, and they could not raise their heads at all. Gua Debeo was one of them. He saw with his own eyes that when one of his brothers wanted to raise his head to shoot, he was immediately shot in the forehead. His body emitted red light, and he could only lie down helplessly. F*CK, Jean Lang, you bastards are using sneak attacks. If you have the guts, come and fight me one-on-one. Gua Debeo shouted sullenly. After a moment of silence, a playful voice was heard. Okay. One-on-one. Come, throw out your guns. I'll fight you one-on-one. If I lose, you win this game. That's what you said. Gua Debeo excitedly threw away the rifle in his hand and jumped out from behind cover. This was a special competition for this year's army competition. The Viper Special Forces of the Jiangnan military region were a little miserable. Not only were they in the same group as Jean Lang, but because the location of the army competition was set in the southwest, this was their territory, so their chances of qualifying were even slimmer. Originally, Viper had thought that even if he lost, he would have to fight a little more fiercely with Jean Lang so that he wouldn't lose so badly. However, They were still ambushed and almost all of them were annihilated. If they went back, they would be laughed at to death. However, Guadabeo still felt that he had grasped onto the last straw of hope. Regardless of whether the other party was coaxing him or not, at least there was still a glimmer of hope. Moreover, in terms of experience in fighting in the jungle, even a few vipers might not be able to win. However, in terms of personal skills, Guadabeo was still a little confident. The people of Zhonglang were still standing vigilantly with their guns. A few of them had already spread out to investigate. Only a guy who was a little jumpy was taking off his disguise, revealing the same military uniform as Guadabeo. However, there was a wolf's head sewn on his sleeve, revealing his identity. Guadabeo also learned from the other party. He threw aside the cumbersome bulletproof vest, tactical suit, and a dagger that he liked to tie to his ankle. Strategically, he despised the enemy, but tactically, he had to pay attention to the enemy. When it was time to fight, that guy also became serious. He stared at Guadabeo and said in a deep voice, "The captain of the second team of the Southwest Military Region's Zhonglang Special Forces, Shan Xinyu." This was a self-introduction. Guadabeo also cupped his hands in a very gangster manner and said, "Jiangnan Military Region's Viper Special Forces, Guadabeo." Without further ado, they immediately started fighting. After Guadabeo had experienced the competition with Yang Yi, his kung fu seemed to have improved again. As soon as they started fighting, the fierce wind from the split palm made Shan Xinyu have no choice but to pay attention. Shan Xinyu used the army's military boxing, but it was a special version that was not taught to outsiders and was extremely lethal. Although it was not as fierce as the split palm, Shan Xinyu steadily parried and looked for opportunities to counterattack. That was always a tricky and vicious counterattack, which also made Guadabeo not dare to show any flaws. The entanglement between the two of them was almost a punch to the flesh, and they fought to their heart's content for almost a quarter of an hour. Shan Xinyu suddenly took a step back and laughed. "Guadabeo, if you only have this little bit of kung fu, I'm afraid you're going to lose today." Guadabeo said angrily, "Don't F***king only know how to talk. Come on, beat me up." He was so excited that his sweat had washed away the camouflage on his face. The clothes that had been torn in the fight just now were now revealing his dark and extremely strong muscles. "Then I'll offend you." Shan Xinyu rushed forward, and his moves suddenly changed. It was originally a military boxing, but now, it suddenly became a close combat Wing Chun. Guadabeo recognized it, but he was a little unable to resist. After Shan Xinyu got close, it was a little difficult for him to find a space to use his split palm, and it was very difficult to fight. But Guadabeo was also tenacious. He resisted for another quarter of an hour before he was unexpectedly tripped by Shan Xinyu's foot. Then, he was caught by the back of his hand and pressed firmly to the ground. "Do you admit defeat?" Shan Xinyu was a little embarrassed by Guadabeo's desperate struggle. He took a breath and asked. Guadabeo's mouth was gnawing on the soil, and the smell of rotten vegetation entered his nose. He breathed heavily and said sullenly, "No. Admit defeat." He could accept personal grudges, but this was related to the team's honor, and Guadabeo intended to rather die than admit defeat. "Okay, Dabeo." At this time, the captain who was killed walked out and said with a sigh, "If you agree to a bet, you must accept defeat. Our Viper has fallen to the hands of Battle Wolf again. Old Luo Zongxing, why are you still not coming out? Did you retire, you bastard?" In the crowd of Battle Wolf, a leaf person walked out, smiled and cupped his fist to the captain of Viper, and said, "Old Li, isn't it normal for your Viper to lose to us? Don't be discouraged, you still have a competition next. Mother Fastris Kerr, my troops have trained hard for a year just to defeat you Zhonglang once. Next time, be careful. If we don't play in your territory, we'll kill you in minutes." Viper's captain, Old Li, spat, but he was still smiling and cursing. In fact, they were all comrades, although they only saw each other a few times a year. But after a few fights, they became friends. "In your dreams, even if we go to your territory, you're not our match." Luo Zongxing laughed. "Mother Fastris Kerr, Old Luo, if you have the guts, pull Battle Wolf over to Jiangnan and try." Luo Zongxing smiled. He pointed at the other party and said, "Old Li, you're not being kind. You're trying to provoke me. You want Battle Wolf to be your free sparring partner? TSK, you obviously don't dare." Old Li was stubborn. Chapter 224. While the other side was cursing, the other side was also harmonious. Shen Sinyu dragged Guadabeo, who had a mouthful of mud, up from the ground and enthusiastically helped him pat the mud off his body. "Not bad, there's still an expert like you in the Jiangnan military region." Guadabeo calmed down at this moment and asked curiously, "Shen Sinyu, what's your ranking in Battle Wolf?" "I'm talking about pure free combat." Shen Sinyu raised his eyebrows and said, "Me? I'm just a rookie. If you come to the Southwest military region and ask who's the best in Battle Wolf, it's definitely me, Shen Sinyu." Next to him, Battle Wolf's teammates could not help but smile. They knew that Shen Sinyu, this fellow, was boasting again. In Battle Wolf, even if Shen Sinyu was not ranked first, he was at least in the top 3. Otherwise, how could he dare to say that Battle Wolf would admit defeat if Guadabeo defeated him? The simple and honest Guadabeo believed it. He nodded and said with emotion, "Battle Wolf is really talented. I met a retired soldier from your army before. Now he's writing novels. He's even better than you, Shen Sinyu. Unfortunately, he didn't have time to come to our place to train me." "Retired from our army? Better than Shen Sinyu?" A few people from Battle Wolf next to him frowned. The veterans who had not left Battle Wolf in the past 2 years, and even the veterans who had retired because of serious injuries, were basically poached by other military regions as consultants. Their troops were basically all elite soldiers, not to mention those who were better than Shen Sinyu. Who would be willing to let them go? Therefore, they expressed deep doubts about Guadabeo's statement. In fact, Yang Yi's books were also promoted and distributed to the Southwest military region. However, the Southwest military region did not have the book fans of the Jiangnan military region. Naturally, the promotion was far less than the Jiangnan military region. "Really, why would I lie to you? He came to our military region as a guest. Hundreds of people watched me fight with him. I couldn't beat him at all," Guadabeo said with dissatisfaction. Shen Sinyu clenched his fists. An answer faintly appeared in his heart, but he didn't dare to believe it. He just calmly asked Guadabeo, "What's the name of the person you're talking about?" "Yang Yi. Haven't any of you watched Soldier Assault and Drawing Sword? Those are all his." Guadabeo's words were interrupted. As expected. After hearing this name, Shen Sinyu's eyes suddenly widened. He rushed forward, grabbed Guadabeo's hand and asked excitedly, "Yang Yi? Are you talking about Yang Yi? Mu Yi Yang, the E of anecdotes?" Guadabeo was still thinking about how to write the E of the anecdote, but he was thinking about the E of the anecdote. He shook his head, squatted down, and used his finger to draw a few lines in the dirt. "Not the E of the anecdote, but this. That's right. This is it." "Yang Yi, where did you see Yang Yi?" Shen Sinyu was so excited that she almost grabbed Guadabeo's collar and lifted him up from the ground. The noise attracted the attention of Old Li and Luo Zongxing. Luo Zongxing walked over and scolded, "Shen Sinyu, what are you doing? Put him down. These are our comrades. Are you confused between a drill and a war?" Shen Sinyu quickly let go of Guadabeo and did not bother to defend himself. He said excitedly to Luo Zongxing, "Master Luo, this guy." Guadabeo said that he saw Yang Yi. Yang Yi. The name suddenly made Luo Zongxing feel absent-minded. It was as if he had suddenly returned to the past. The brother who made him feel ashamed every time he thought of it appeared in front of his eyes. Yang Yi. Is it really Yang Yi? Several veterans of Zhonlang also widened their eyes and asked excitedly. Yang Yi, where is he now? Luo Zongxing, who was called Master Luo by his brothers, sounded a little heavy, as if to cover up his sobbing nasal voice. Is he okay now? He should be fine, right? I wrote 2 very good novels. Haven't you read them? By the way, is he really from Zhonlang? Gua de Bao scratched his head and said. Old Li nodded and said, I've also seen Yang Yi. He's doing well now. I heard that our superiors wanted to hire him as Viper's instructor, but he didn't agree. Hey, old Luo, what's going on with him? Sigh, it's all my fault. I didn't protect him well. Luo Zongxing smiled bitterly and said calmly, when he left, he didn't even leave a way to contact him. We've been looking for him all these years, but we couldn't find him. 2 years ago, Lu. Shen Xinyu almost said it out loud. Fortunately, a brother next to him pulled him back. Shen Xinyu stopped himself from saying that name and said resentfully, Anyway, the matter has been resolved. Master Luo wants to get Yang Yi back. Even if he's fat now and can't fight, he should still be treated well. By the way, his military status has been restored long ago. He's just retired. Gua de Bao didn't allow others to talk about his idol. He said unhappily, Yang Yi didn't get fat. He's still very strong. Didn't I say that he's stronger than you? Nonsense, Yang Yi is stronger than me? In the past, he was tortured by me in Zhonlang. Shan Xinyu shouted unhappily. In fact, there wasn't such a big gap between them. Yang Yi and Shan Xinyu used to be on par with each other, and neither of them was convinced of the other's strength. However, Yang Yi and Shan Xinyu were friends who had gone through life and death together. In addition, they appreciated each other, so Shan Xinyu had been thinking about Yang Yi, an old rival. But he couldn't lose in terms of momentum. TSK, I said he's stronger than you, so he's stronger than you. When he used his full strength, I couldn't even resist. Gua de Bao snorted and said, If you don't believe me, go to Zhongqing and fight him one-on-one. In Zhongqing, Yang Yi sneezed. He frowned, thinking that he had caught a cold. Although this body was strong enough and it was almost impossible for him to catch a cold or have a fever, there was a delicate little girl at home. In order to not infect his daughter, he told Ding Xiang and went to the school hospital in Zhongqing to buy 2 packs of cold medicine to drink. On the way back, he inadvertently saw Guazi standing in front of the Film Academy building. Standing face to face with Guazi was Du Yuanlei, the girl that Guazi couldn't forget. Du Yuanlei could be considered a beauty, right? Yang Yi didn't feel anything when he looked at her. Murphy was much prettier than her. Even Mo Xiaowan could barely compete with her. However, as a director, Du Yuanlei's temperament was indeed much better than ordinary girls. Maybe it was because of her talent that Guazi was attracted to her? Because Guazi was his good friend, Yang Yi, who didn't gossip, was also interested. He watched from afar for a while, watching Guazi's expression gradually change from joy to disappointment. Finally, he lowered his head, handed the things in his hand to Du Yuanlei, and walked away dejectedly. Du Yuanlei was expressionless throughout the whole process. After waiting for Du Yuanlei to return, Yang Yi quickly walked towards Guazi. He patted the depressed little fatty's shoulder and said with a smile, What's wrong? Didn't you say that you've given up? Why are you looking for her again today? Brother Yang. Guazi saw that Yang Yi was a little surprised and blushed. You saw everything? I saw it. It's not a big deal. You were rejected. Yang Yi comforted. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Why do you have a one-sided love for one flower? Guazi sighed and told the whole story. Originally, the little fatty had also given up. But later, Du Yuanlei called all the performers for a meeting. She requested for non-original programs to provide the authorizations of the songwriters so that they could have a share of the profits. Basically, they couldn't give it. So, their share of the profits from singing basically went to the songwriters. Although it wouldn't be much, it was indeed the request of the copyright organization. It was a pervasive restriction on all possibilities of profit from infringement. However, there were still a few people who could provide the authorizations. For example, Tang Kai Tai, who had a strong background. If Guazi asked, Yang Yi would also give him the authorizations. But this guy didn't care about such a small amount of money. He was too lazy to make it so complicated. but he still needed to provide the name of the songwriter of his song, University Days. Guazi knew that Yang Yi didn't want the whole city to know, so he suggested to tell Du Yuanlei in private. Du Yuanlei agreed. This gave Guazi a wrong signal. This guy thought that his relationship with Du Yuanlei could be saved, so he secretly learned from Yang Yi. To be exact, he secretly learned from Shi's handiwork. He wrote a full love letter and folded it into a heart pattern. Then, there was the scene that Yang Yi saw just now. She accepted the letter? Yang Yi remembered that Guazi gave something to Du Yuanlei. No, it's just another piece of paper with your stage name, Muzi Ang, and a certification link from a copyright organization. Guazi sighed and said. He spread out the other hand that he had been clenching. His red heart was soaked with sweat. It's still the same sentence. There are plenty of fish in the sea. There are so many beautiful women in Jiangchuan. You don't have to hang yourself on Du Yuanlei. Yang Yi comforted him. A real man, how can I have a family without a career? Brother Yang, I don't want to fall in love. I want to work hard for my dream of being an actor. Guazi threw the red heart into a passing trash can and said solemnly. Chapter 225. Yang Yi, come here, there's news about you. In the bedroom, Yang Yi was packing up the clothes, hats, cosmetics, and some other miscellaneous things that Mo Fei brought and stuffed them all into the suitcase. Mo Fei, who was watching TV in the living room, suddenly yelled. Last time, Niu Meiling asked Murphy to renew the contract, but Murphy, who asked for Yang Yi's advice, resisted the other party's flowery words, and then sent Mo Shaowan to deal with the company. It was true that Mo Fei did not know how to play mind games with others, but Mo Shaowan knew how to play mind games without a teacher, and she was very good at playing mind games. One word, delay. No matter what the reason was, it was to delay and not renew the contract so early. Niu Meiling was flustered and exasperated, but she couldn't do anything to Mo Shaowan. She couldn't help it. She wanted to find a chance to bypass Mo Shaowan to persuade Murphy. But at this time, Murphy was also arranged by Mo Shaowan, who noticed in advance. She asked for sick leave and went home. Her communication tools were temporarily taken over by Mo Shaowan. Now Murphy, who was sick, was watching TV in the living room. She hid in Yang Yi's place and planned to stay for a few days. Of course, Murphy herself didn't want to see such a situation happen. She wanted to record the song well. She had been looking forward to being able to push out this album with too many hopes as soon as possible. However, now the process had to be delayed. Naturally, she felt uncomfortable in her heart. Fortunately, she knew that Yang Yi and Murphy were doing it for her own good, so she didn't do anything stupid at this time. And on Yang Yi's side, Murphy was happily entangled by the little girl who hadn't seen her mother for a long time. She chattered and her mood gradually improved. What news? Why am I on the news? Yang Yi came out of the bedroom, a little confused. He was such a low-key person. How could he be on the news? Papa, come sit with me. She snuggled up to her mother to watch TV. When she saw her father come out, she happily patted the spot beside her. She especially liked the feeling of being sandwiched between her parents. It gave her a sense of security. When Yang Yi sat down, Murphy pointed at the television and said with a smile, Director Chen is coming to Zhongnan to film a TV series. Isn't Soldier Assault your book? On the TV, Chen Fengchen and a few others were talking to a group of reporters on stage. However, behind them was another period drama. Murphy said with some regret, You're late. Just now, when Director Chen was answering the reporters' questions, he mentioned you and your book. He said that he would be coming to Zhongnan next month to prepare for the new production team. I also heard Papa's name. She raised her small hand to prove for her mother. Yang Yi smiled and rubbed Shi's little head. He said to Murphy, It's okay. The copyright has been sold. The rest is up to Director Chen. I don't have the right to interfere. I can only hope that director Chen lives up to his reputation and can film it well. Yang Yi did not ignore the fact that his book had been adapted into a TV series like before. He still hoped that the TV series could be filmed at the level of his previous life and not ruin the original classic. However, there was no other way. Chen Fengchen had always been a strong director and did not allow anyone to interfere with his TV series. Even Yang Yi, the original author, could not. All the adaptations and filming were done by him or someone he trusted. If it were not for the fact that his previous works were really good, Yang Yi really did not want to hand these two works over to Chen Fengchen. Now that Yang Yi was also studying the script, he was thinking of selling the film rights of the novel in the future and directly selling the finished script. If he filmed it according to his script, at least it would not deviate too much from the original plot, right? However, Yang Yi had not read the script of any movie or TV series. He did not know that he would transmigrate, so why would he read the script? Therefore, learning to write a script from scratch was a little difficult. At this time, a reporter on TV asked Chen Fengchen, "Director Chen, has the lead actor of Soldier's Assault been confirmed? We are more curious about who Su Sanduo is. Who will play Chen Kai?" It wasn't that a mere bestseller was enough to make all the reporters familiar with it. Now, there were reporters who could easily say the names Su Sanduo and Chen Kai. The main reason was that Chen Fengchen had already released the rumor that he was going to select actors for the new drama. Naturally, the all-pervasive reporters had done their homework. Soldier's Assault is a very excellent story. Not only does it tell the growth of an ordinary soldier from a village, but it also created many vivid characters. Therefore, I do not think that Su Sanduo and Chen Kai are the only leads in this TV series that I am directing. The other characters, such as Captain Yuan Lang, Squad Leader Shi Jin, Wu Lu Yi, Gao Cheng, and so on, can all be said to be the main characters of this TV series, or even the main leads. Chen Fengchen's Tai Chi was not bad. He perfectly resolved the questions that the reporters threw out because they were eager to know which actor he was going to work with. Now was not the time to disclose this information. As an experienced director, Chen Fengchen naturally knew the benefits of appropriately whetting the public's appetite. However, the reporters were still unwilling to let him go. One of the reporters who was called out immediately asked, "Director Chen, we all know that you are famous for nurturing new actors. Then, will the cast for Soldier's Assault also be selected from some C or D-list stars or even non-professional actors?" "Who said that?" "I also like to nurture actors who have been famous for a long time. Look, isn't Jie Yuchen sitting next to me?" Chen Fengchen pointed at the male actor who came with him for the press conference. Jie Yuchen could be considered a quasi-A-list actor, but he still trembled when he sat next to the old man. He could only smile helplessly when he was teased. "All right, this is the press conference for Great Chu's Palace. Please ask more questions related to it. I'll say one more thing about Soldier's Assault. I won't answer any more questions. Currently, the cast for Su Sanduo hasn't been confirmed. I've had many actors audition during this time, but the results didn't satisfy me. Therefore, I can't rule out the possibility of selecting new actors. If anyone wants to try out for this role, you can send a video of your audition to Assistant Ruan's email." Chen Fengchen's words immediately caused an uproar among the reporters. They all wanted to ask, "Is this an audition for the main lead? Does Director Chen have any special requirements? Why don't the other actors fit?" However, Chen Fengchen was a man of his words. He sat there with a smile and didn't say a word. After a while, the reporters had no choice but to change their questions. Now that the news was no longer about Yang Yi's book, Murphy smiled and said to Yang Yi, "Director Chen isn't bad. He wants to choose the best actor for your book." Yes, Su Sanduo's role isn't easy to choose. Actors who don't have any experience in the countryside probably won't be able to play it well. I'm more agreeable to Director Chen using new actors. Many of the young people who play extras nowadays are from the countryside. Yang Yi nodded. "You guys aren't listening to me." She was unhappy. She sat in the middle and felt that her presence was very low. She, what did you say?" Murphy quickly followed. I said that they stopped talking about Yang Yi. She pouted and said, I couldn't hear Papa's name. Yang Yi and Murphy were stunned for a moment, then they couldn't help but laugh. This little fellow was really listening attentively. Chapter 226. Springfield Kindergarten's curriculum was very interesting. The teachers didn't just force the kids to learn, they focused more on enlightening the kids' abilities. For example, the first 2 weeks of learning how to write. After the teachers taught the kids how to write the strokes, they asked the kids to go home and study how to write their names with their parents. It was this kind of exploration that allowed the kids to understand the structure of words. In the future, they didn't need the teachers to teach them word by word. They could learn how to write other words by imitating them. Of course, this writing lesson was just a beginner's lesson. It was not suitable for these half-grown children to lie on their desks and crawl all day long. After the teachers had enlightened their basic writing skills, they started other more interesting lessons. For example, this week's handicraft class was held. Although it was held to enlighten the kids' hands-on skills, it was very popular with the kids. She liked it very much. Almost every day after she came back from kindergarten, she would look forward to going to kindergarten the next day. Under the guidance of Ms. Shen, who was good at all kinds of handicrafts, she and the other kids seemed to have entered a new world. On the first day, she brought home a heart made of folded red paper. This was even plagiarized by the despicable dad. Yang Yi took a picture of it and sent it to Murphy. He didn't even tell Murphy that it was she who folded it. On the second day, she brought home a big cardboard. On the cardboard, there was a pattern of trees and flowers made with colored shreds of paper and a watercolor pen. On the third day, she brought home a handmade phone that Ms. Shan taught them to make with 2 paper cups and a cotton thread to play with. She, who didn't understand the principle behind it, was very happy to show her mother the magic of whispering. On the fourth day, yesterday, it was finally the weekend. Ms. Shen demonstrated to the kids in class and gave them the instruction manual. She also gave the kids and their parents a parent-child assignment. Mom, Dad, and the baby have to make a doll out of the discarded fabric at home. Fortunately, it was a small assignment. Otherwise, she would have pestered her dad to go to kindergarten to play with Ms. Shen on the weekend. Mo Sansui, on the other hand, was very interested in Shi's handiwork. He had been preparing the materials in high spirits since last night. She found the bib that Yang Yi had bought for Shi, but Shi wasn't a 1-year-old child, so she didn't need it. It was made of 100% pure cotton and felt very comfortable to the touch. Furthermore, it was light pink and the color was pure and elegant. It was suitable for making dolls. As for the cotton wool used for stuffing, Murphy didn't want to use medical cotton. She directly opened Yang Yi's pillow and took out a handful. She even snickered and ran over to Yang Yi to ask him if he knew where she got this ball of cotton. Left with no choice, Yang Yi could only serve her according to the family rules. Without a pillow, the two of them could only sleep on the same bed that night. Yang Yi slept on Murphy's pillow, and Murphy slept on Yang Yi's body. Cough, cough. It was worth mentioning that Yang Yi didn't have a needle and thread at home. Although he was an artistic killer who could embroider in his heart, he didn't really know how to embroider. Spider-Man and Hybian King knew how to make clothes for themselves, but Yang Yi didn't. Usually, when his clothes were torn, he would just throw them away and change them. Why would he ever think of sewing them himself? Therefore, his pillow couldn't be mended. The next day, he had to find a place to buy needles and thread for Murphy and Shi to make handiwork for them. Yang Yi really didn't know where to buy needles and thread for mending. Fortunately, he had Ding Xiang, who lived frugally and continued to wear clothes after they were torn, to consult him. Brother Yang, is it because Shi's clothes are torn? Give them to me. I'll go back to the dormitory and bring them back for you. Taking advantage of the fact that there were many customers during the weekend, Ding Xiang, who came to open the shop early, kindly wanted to help Yang Yi save money. You don't need to buy needles and thread. You don't need it anyway. It's such a waste. After knowing the real purpose of Yang Yi's purchase of needles and thread, Ding Xiang wanted to give her needles and thread to Yang Yi, but Yang Yi politely refused this kind girl. He didn't want needles or thread. He just wanted to know where to buy needles and thread. After a lot of trouble, Yang Yi finally bought back the needle box, pink thread, and his new pillow that Murphy wanted in the afternoon. Finally, it was time to start making handmade dolls. Yang Yi looked at the excited Murphy and kindly reminded her, "Murphy, you can't do all the procedures by yourself. This is a parent-child task. You have to let she join in." The little girl, who had been squatting by the side and looking eagerly, nodded quickly. She blinked her big eyes and said, "Mom, I want to play too." She wasn't the only one who wanted to play. Seeing the balls of cotton wool, the three kittens raised their tails and circled around with interest. They watched the reactions of their owners and looked for opportunities to sneak in and touch them. However, Murphy was very vigilant and drove them away. She spread out the manual, pointed down step by step, and said, She certainly wants to join in, but Mom has to tell you that you can't touch needles. The sewing work must be done by Mom or Papa. You can help Mom and Mom, okay? Okay. She answered happily. No matter what she did, as long as she could join in, it was fine. I don't need to, right? I'll help you drive the kittens away. Yang Yi hurriedly waved his hand. Wasn't threading the needle something that the girls and Dong Fong Booby played with? There was still a way to deal with Little Gray, Dodo, and Little Guai. Yang Yi took out the catmint dolls that he bought a few days ago. In fact, they were just small dolls with bags of catmint stuffed in them. There were exactly 3 of them in a set, and Yang Yi threw them all out. When he threw them out, the British Shorthairs didn't pay attention. Only the active Little Gray turned its head to take a look, but it didn't seem to be as attractive as the balls of cotton wool. However, Dodo's sensitive nose seemed to have smelled something. It ran cheerfully to the nearest doll and sniffed. Suddenly, the 2 pupils of Dodo's eyes turned from slits to big round beads. With a meow, Dodo's 2 paws pounced on the doll, and then started to bite. It didn't seem like it was dealing with an enemy. After biting for a while, Dodo twisted its body and used every part of its big round face to rub the catmint doll hard. In a short while, the 3 catmint dolls found their respective partners, and then they were brutally ravaged by their partners. The filthy scene was simply unbearable to watch. In any case, the 3 little fellows didn't have the energy to disturb Yang Yi and the others for the time being. However, Murphy still arranged a task for Yang Yi. No, Mr. Shan said that he wants parents and children to make this doll together. Yang Yi, how can you not do your homework? Murphy looked at Yang Yi's flustered look, chuckled, and said, Come, take this bib and cut off the bumps on the edges. Yang Yi had no choice but to sit down as well. Fortunately, he was only using scissors. He could play with anything related to knives. Grabbing the center of the scissors, he moved the scissors in a circle. The raised parts were all cut out, leaving only an oval piece of cloth. Murphy wasn't idle either. She rolled the cotton wool into strips, and she followed suit. Then, according to Mr. Shen's instructions, the strips were stacked together and rolled into a sturdy and beautiful ball. It's a bit too big. Mr. Shen said that the diameter is about 3 centimeters. Ours is a bit too big, but it's okay. Let's make a bigger doll. Murphy smiled at she, who was curiously poking the ball. Okay, make a big one. I like big dolls. She replied happily. Chapter 227. A man who once wiped blood on the tip of a knife, now has to learn how to thread a needle. How sad is that? Perhaps the world will mourn and weep for him. But when Yang Yi really learned how to thread a needle, not only did he not feel sad, but he was secretly happy. Wow! Papa is amazing. The little girl who was shouting in surprise at the side was the source of this secret joy. When she saw her father casually thread the needle through the thin needle hole, she couldn't help but stand up. Her small mouth became a circle, and her big eyes were full of surprise and worship. How did he do it? Although it was the first time Yang Yi threaded a needle, he still helped Murphy. But who asked him to have good eyesight, thick and long fingers that were also very flexible. He passed the pass in one try. She, Do you want to try? After being worshipped by his daughter, this guy was a little complacent, and he pulled out the thread that had already been threaded. Murphy, who was about to take the needle and thread, saw this scene. She was angry and laughed. She said angrily, "You hold the tip of the needle, don't prick your daughter." She caught the tip of the thread and was eager to try, but when she heard the word prick, the little girl was a little scared. She held the thread with her right hand and retracted it, while her left hand repeatedly waved, and timidly said, "I'm scared, Papa, I'm scared, prick is very painful." "It's okay, you can't prick it. Look at the sharp end, Papa is holding it." Yang Yi comforted the little girl and said with a smile, "Just look here and thread the tip of the thread through this small hole." "Okay, Papa, you have to be careful." She hesitated for a moment, but still summoned the courage to walk over. While carefully holding her father's shoulder, she carefully observed the needle hole. "Here, take the thread and thread it." Yang Yi encouraged the little girl. However, although Shishi's eyesight was very good, but when she was about to step on the hole, her little hand shook, and the hateful thread couldn't get through. Her small hands were trembling so much that the thread was swaying left and right. It was a stark contrast to her father's steady hands. "I don't know how to do it, Papa will do it." She tried for a while and finally lost her patience. She pouted her small mouth unhappily. "Daddy will show you the magic of piercing the needle," Yang Yi said excitedly to Shi. He especially enjoyed his daughter's admiring eyes. Sure. Since she didn't have to do it herself, she became lively again. She jumped over happily and leaned her soft body on her father's shoulder. Murphy was also very curious about how Yang Yi could thread without looking at the needle hole. She held the small ball of cotton in her hand and also moved over. Two pairs of eyes, one big and one small, were looking at Yang Yi. "Watch carefully." Yang Yi held the needle in his left hand and the thread in his right. He sucked on the end of the thread with his mouth. Then, he turned his hands around so that the back of his hands was facing himself. The side holding the needle and thread was facing Murphy. "Wait a minute, I want to see." She quickly ran to her mother's side and sat in her mother's arms. Then, she giggled and said, "It's done." Yang Yi really didn't want to see. Not only did he block it with the back of his hand, he also turned his head to avoid arousing suspicion. He only saw his finger touching the position of the needle hole. Then, based on the feeling with his right hand, he pinched the end of the thread and moved it over. "Wow!" Murphy couldn't help but cover her mouth and shout. She saw very clearly that the end of the thread was very stable. It was pressed horizontally against the needle hole. Yang Yi's right hand gently moved and the thread went through. Then, Yang Yi really did it like embroidering. His ring finger and little finger replaced his index finger and thumb to press the thread. His index finger and thumb moved forward along the needle hole and felt the end of the thread passing through. Then, he gently pulled, as if his whole body was relaxed. "Awesome, awesome." Murphy couldn't help but clap her hands. She followed suit and clapped her hands vigorously. The little girl clapped her hands until they were red. She kept giggling with her head raised. After letting Yang Yi show off for a while, he still had to continue making the doll. Murphy followed Teacher Shen's instructions and tied up the ball of cotton wool with another thread. This would be the head of the doll. Of course, there would be a little tail after it was tied up. She, help Mom hold it first. Hold it here. Be careful. Murphy gave she a small task. The little girl held the ball of cotton wool and helped by the side. At this time, Yang Yi continued to cut the cotton cloth into 2 pieces according to Murphy's instructions. Murphy took the long piece out, folded it in half, and sewed it on according to the instructions to make a small pocket. "It's She's turn." Murphy smiled. She opened the small pocket and pointed at the cotton wool next to it. She said, She, help Mom get some cotton wool and stuff it in." It felt so good to be able to help. She was full of motivation. She squatted down for a while, then stood up for a while. She kept stuffing the small pocket with cotton wool. Her little face was filled with a happy smile. However, she didn't know how to make a lot of cotton wool at once and then tear it open to stuff it in. Okay, it's almost done. She, give the ball to Mom, Murphy said. Yang-yi had nothing to do now, so he watched from the side. He saw Murphy stuffing the neck of the ball of cotton wool into the pocket. Then, the head was tightly pressed against the opening of the pocket. After sewing the line to make it firm, the prototype of the doll was already formed. However, it wasn't over yet. Murphy took the remaining square piece of cotton cloth. She sewed the 4 sides of the cloth and then folded it diagonally. She took the prototype that she had just made and wrapped the head in the center of the cotton cloth. This part was a bit complicated. Mo Fei did it alone, while Cece squatted next to her. Her little face was tense, as if she was the one who was sewing, and she was so nervous that she pursed her lips. The smooth side was the face, and the wrinkled side was the hair. Then, she tied a knot at the 2 ends of the bottom line. After sewing the thread, a simple doll was completed. Okay, it's done. Murphy shook the doll in her hand and handed it to Shi. She smiled and asked, Shi, what do you think? It looks good. Shi quickly nodded. She pouted her little mouth and said to her mother, It looks better than Teacher Shen's. Really? Then I'm so happy. Murphy grinned from ear to ear. She was happier than if she had released a platinum album. But I don't want to bring it to Teacher Shen. I like it too, she said hesitantly to her mother, hugging the doll tightly. Why? Murphy was puzzled. Because I want to hug it to sleep at night. She felt that this doll was extraordinary. It was made by her father, mother, and she. It had completely replaced the original big bear in her heart. You can still get it back after you hand in your homework. Murphy didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she corrected Shi's wrong idea. Then, she turned to Yang-yi, who was watching TV, and said, Yang-yi, quickly promise your daughter that you and Teacher Shen will help Shi get this doll back. Oh, I promise. Yang-yi's answer was perfunctory. What are you watching? Murphy asked curiously. I'm not watching anything. Yang-yi was still trying to hide it in a panic. Murphy walked over suspiciously and saw that the TV was playing the recording of yesterday's Fast Music. Then, on the TV, she was affectionately singing the song, I Came Across the Ocean to See You. If you want to watch, then turn on the sound. Why are you being so sneaky? Mo Fei blushed and pinched the soft part of Yang-yi's waist, although it was not soft at all. Last night, the show started at 10 o'clock. Shi had already fallen asleep. Yang-yi and Murphy were sitting in the living room watching the show. Murphy didn't want to watch it. She felt that she was ugly on variety shows, but Yang-yi insisted on watching it. He especially wanted to hear her sing the song, I Came Across the Ocean to See You. Even now, Murphy could still remember Yang-yi's expression at that time. He listened and watched with special attention, just like a little fanboy. Tell me, when you sang this song, were you thinking of me? Yang-yi listened attentively, taking in all the changes in her expression. Then, he carried Murphy in his arms and looked at her as he gently asked this question. Murphy stubbornly denied it at that time, but she couldn't help but laugh. You're still denying it. You didn't stay abroad with Shi, but you came back across the ocean. If it wasn't for me, who else could it be? Yang-yi tickled her. Murphy couldn't stand being tickled. She struggled for a moment before confessing amidst laughter. However, it was too late to confess. She had underestimated the inhumane rules of the Yang family. Yang-yi didn't give her a chance to explain and directly punished her with the family rules. Just as she was punished for resisting being strict and taking out the pillow, the energetic Yang-yi made Murphy kneel on the sofa in the living room to repent. Then, she was tortured by yoga on the big bed. In the end, Murphy, who almost fainted in the clouds, sat in jail for a long time. Murphy couldn't remember what happened after that. When she woke up the next day, just as mentioned earlier, she was sharing a bed with Yang-yi. How I wish I could send you off 1,000 miles, until the end of the world, and spend the rest of my life with you. Yang-yi didn't know when he had listened to her and turned up the volume of the TV. Murphy was pulled back from the memories of her blushing face yesterday by her own singing. Ouch. Yang Yi pulled his foot back in pain. He was stepped on by Murphy, but it wasn't too painful. He looked at Murphy in confusion. What's wrong? Why did you step on me? Who told you to always think of doing bad things? Murphy said angrily with a red face. What bad things? Yang Yi really couldn't understand. He was just listening to Murphy sing, and he was doing bad things? What kind of logic was this? Chapter 228. On Monday, she happily carried her dolls to kindergarten. Every child brought their own dolls. However, not all of them were made by their parents. Lon Xian was very pitiful. She pouted and complained to Shi, "My father is on a business trip, and my mother can't make the dolls. The nanny and auntie help me." In fact, according to Ms. Shen's instructions, every child's dolls were similar. The only difference was the color of the cloth. The boys' dolls were mainly blue, white, and brown, while the girls' dolls were in a variety of colors. Shi's pink doll was more popular, but there were also some dolls in purple, magenta, light green, and beige. However, the differences still had to be shown. Ms. Shen selected a few children who did a good job and sewed the dolls well to praise. Although they were all little girls, most of them were boys. After all, their dolls were made by their mothers. She was one of 2 little girls who were praised. The other one was Chan Shiyun, whose boxing coach father married a nurse mother who was clever and skillful. Cece's doll was praised because it had a little hat sewn with a piece of red cloth compared to other children's dolls. On Sunday, when Mo Fei was bored, she cut a piece of red cloth and added it to Cece's hat. When Ms. Shen praised she specially took out her doll and showed it to all the children. She also interviewed the little girl. Shi, why did you think of adding a cap here? She stood up and crossed her hands in front of her chest. She was a little shy, but she said honestly, Mom made it. Mom said that Little Red Riding Hood is very brave and smart. She wants she to be like Little Red Riding Hood. Huh? Why is Little Red Riding Hood so brave and smart? Ms. Shen asked curiously. Because Little Red Riding Hood defeated the big bad wolf and saved her grandmother. She raised her head and said proudly, "My papa told me." Wow! The children in the circle all cried out in surprise. Is the big bad wolf very scary? Yong Luoqi shrunk her head and asked timidly. I've seen the big bad wolf in the zoo. It's not scary at all. It's even smaller than my dog. Chen Shiyun shouted. Lon Xian pouted and said unhappily, "Who said it's not scary? My father said that if I don't listen to him, he will let the big bad wolf eat me." Ms. Shen was a little dumbfounded. After the children finished talking, she whispered to Shi and pulled Shi to the middle. She clapped her hands and said, Shi told me the story of Little Red Riding Hood is very interesting. Shall we ask Shi to tell us the story of Little Red Riding Hood? The children were all clapping their hands with all their might. Chen Shiyun was even competing with Lon Xian. Everyone had already stopped, but the 2 of them were still clapping non-stop. Ms. Shen smiled and stepped aside. But after the teacher left, Shi became nervous. This was the first time that Shi told a story to others. It was different from the feeling of telling a story to her parents. Her friends were all staring at her. She felt that she was a little speechless. This story, it's me, it's my papa who told me. She began to stammer, but the more she stuttered, the more nervous she became. Fortunately, Ms. Shen helped her out. She said with a smile, "It's okay, Shi. Take your time. Let's applaud for Shi, okay?" At the side, Mr. Mu even passed Cece's doll to her. Hugging the doll and having a prop to rely on, the little girl stuttered as she continued to tell the story. Papa said that Grandma gave that little sister a Little Red Riding Hood, and she liked it very much. Later, she called it Little Red Riding Hood. Cece held her doll and pointed at the red hat and said, "Later, Grandma got sick. Mama said, Little Red Riding Hood, give Grandma a cake. Grandma will not get sick after eating the cake. Cece's narration was lacking in weight and vocabulary, but in the ears of the other children, it was just like a great adventure story. It was no less exciting. All the children, including Chan Shiyun, listened attentively. Their eyes were glued to Shi, and they did not even blink. From giving the cake to Grandma, to talking with the big bad wolf on the road, and then the big bad wolf ran to Grandma's house and tricked Grandma into opening the door, eating Grandma, and then pretending to be Grandma lying on the bed. Shi's story was indeed short of many details, such as the happy experience of Little Red Riding Hood on the road, and the psychological activities of the big bad wolf. But what was rare was that she remembered the main plot of the story, and told it in an orderly way. The children were nervous at this time. Lan Xian clenched her little fists and pursed her lips tightly, as if she was Little Red Riding Hood, afraid that she would be eaten by the big bad wolf when she opened the door. Little Red Riding Hood went to Grandma's house. The big bad wolf was on Grandma's bed and wanted to eat Little Red Riding Hood. Cece still left out a lot of details, but her narration was still thrilling. She hugged the doll tightly, and the atmosphere became tense. But Little Red Riding Hood saw it. She had a happy smile on her face. The little girl became more fluent, and her voice became more cheerful because of Little Red Riding Hood. She saw the big bad wolf's hand. It was so hairy and had claws. It was so scary. Then what should we do? Lan Xian grabbed Yong Luoqi's hand in fear. Yong Luoqi was also very scared. The two girls huddled together and hugged each other for warmth. Little Red Riding Hood is very smart. She told the big bad wolf that she was going to get the cake. She said. The plot of the story was different from the original. Yang Yi changed the story for Shi, saying that Little Red Riding Hood tricked the big bad wolf into leaving the cake outside the house. In fact, although Little Red Riding Hood found the cake, she was still eaten by the big bad wolf. In the end, the hunter came to save her. Then Little Red Riding Hood went to find the hunter uncle. The hunter helped her defeat the big bad wolf and then saved Grandma. Shi finished the story. Wasn't Grandma eaten? Nan Xiaoyu listened carefully. He raised his little hand and asked. Because Grandma was in the big bad wolf's stomach. The hunter uncle cut open the big bad wolf's stomach, and Grandma came out. Shi drew a circle on her hand and gestured. Very good. Thank you, Shi, for telling us the story. What do you think? Mr. Shen came up with a smile and patted Shi's shoulder. Yes. The group of children nodded excitedly, as if they were the brave and smart Little Red Riding Hood. So, this story tells us. Mr. Shen was still talking, but Shi didn't listen. The little girl was full of joy as she puffed out her chest. She had finished telling a story, and she had even finished telling it completely. There was no need to mention how great this sense of accomplishment was. At this moment, Shi was waiting for school to finish. She wanted to go home and tell her parents about this story. However, it was still early, and it was not noon yet. She might have to wait for a long time. She didn't notice that the other children were looking at her eagerly. Lan Xian, Yong Luoqi, and Chen Shiyun were waiting for her to have lunch together. But this time, they were not waiting for Shi's father's delicious food, but for Shi's story. The children all wanted the class to end quickly, so that they could gather around Shi and ask her if there were any other interesting stories. It seemed that the little girl was going to be the center of attention again. Chapter 229. Murphy had not returned on Monday. Niu Meiling, who had received the news from her subordinates, could not sit still. The next morning, she called Mo Xiaowan and gave her an ultimatum, "Come to my office. Let's talk about Murphy." Mo Xiaowan was not timid and went to the meeting alone. What does Murphy mean? She's grown up now and doesn't want to renew the contract with the company, right? When Mo Xiaowan walked in, Niu Meiling gave her a show of strength. She wanted to suppress Mo Xiaowan with her imposing manner. However, Mo Xiaowan was not Murphy. She smiled and said, "Hey, Sister Ling, why are you angry?" This contract renewal is not a small matter like eating and sleeping. We have to talk about it slowly. Slow. Is this the attitude of wanting to talk to me? Neo Miling snorted. It's been more than a week, and Murphy hasn't said anything. She even hid and refused to see me. I think you guys have a guilty conscience. Sister Faye is sick today. She has a cold and cough, so she can't talk much. That's why I told her to rest at home and protect her golden voice. Mo Shaowan smiled and said, and Sister Ling, don't you know who has a guilty conscience? Neo Miling was shocked and angry. Mo Shaowan, you're talking to me like that? What's with your attitude? Sorry, Sister Ling, I'm a quick talker and can't control myself. It's my fault. Please forgive me. Mo Shaowan smiled as she apologized, but she didn't mean to apologize at all. This girl was actually a little tired of Neo Miling's aggressive attitude. She almost couldn't help but flip the table. Humph. Neo Miling was furious. However, before Mo Shaowan could finish, she still smiled charmingly and said, Sister Ling, actually, we also have the sincerity to renew the contract, but we can't just go all out, right? What kind of sincerity was the company showing? Our Sister Faye is currently holding up the contract, and there is still half a year left before the contract expires. You want her to renew the contract, and even renew this kind of 7-year trash contract? It's fine if you want to fool the newcomer, but don't think that our Sister Faye is simple and easy to fool. Mo Shaowan was still smiling as she spoke, but the sharpness in her words had already been revealed. That was then, and this is now. I have also told Murphy about her performance when she signed the contract before, and what her performance is now. The company's situation is not as optimistic as it used to be. Signing this contract with her is already a concession on account of her previous contributions to the company. Neo Miling's tone relaxed as she persuaded. Sister Ling, don't play this game with us. Sister Faye's results were so bad after her return. At first, we didn't know what was going on, but later on, we more or less understood. Don't you know that the company didn't really support Sister Faye's return? Mo Shaowan smiled slightly, but her heart was holding back a ball of fire. Isn't the company going to support Murphy? What are you talking about? Neo Miling became angry and reprimanded. We won't delve into the past, but Sister Ling, why are you in such a hurry to renew the contract now? Why don't you wait for our Sister Faye to release this album and see what kind of results it will have? See if she can once again reproduce the glory of the platinum album of the past before considering renewing the contract? Mo Shaowan asked with a smile. Impossible. If Murphy doesn't renew the contract, we can't release an album for her. She can drag it out, but let's see if the company dares to freeze her. Neo Miling's face was left behind by Mo Shaowan again and again, so she simply shed all pretense of cordiality and threatened. Mo Shaowan narrowed her eyes, like a cat, and her smile disappeared. However, she didn't lose her temper, but gently, as if a friend was persuading her, she said softly, Sister Ling, our Sister Faye's contract has less than a year left. If you freeze her, our Sister Faye can afford to wait. At worst, she can take the new album to another company to record in a year. It's not like you don't know that these 12 songs were authorized by Mu Zi-ong to our Sister Faye, not to you. Neo Miling's breath couldn't help but stagnate, and her nose was almost crooked from anger. Is Murphy's wings hard now? She's determined to leave? Look at what you're saying, Sister Ling. Just now, that Sister Faye's words were said by you first, right? Our Sister Faye has deep feelings for you and Tian Mei, so of course she can't bear to leave. However, if you insist on forcing her, and even use words like freezing her, I'm afraid she'll be forced to leave by you no matter how determined she is. Mo Shaowan recovered her smile, and looked like she was grinning. Neo Miling took a deep breath, and calmed her mood. Although Mo Shaowan was very annoying, and made Neo Miling a little confused, Neo Miling had to admit that Mo Shaojuan's words were reasonable. She also had a deep understanding of Murphy's personality, and she had even worked with Murphy longer than Mo Shaowan. This child was cold on the outside, but warm on the inside, and had a stubborn personality. She could be tied down with emotions, but if she was really forced, she might run away. What's Murphy's attitude? Does she still want to talk to the company about renewing the contract? Nyo Miling asked coldly. Of course she wants to talk, but the company has to show some sincerity. Mo Xiaowan said with a grin. Mo Xiaowan was actually cursing in her heart. Talk my ass, my sister Fei wants to leave. However, on the surface, she still had to do it. Mo Xiaowan didn't know that Yang Yi had resources. She was inclined to use Tian Mei to raise Murphy's status first, and then leave when the contract expired. Falling out with her was probably the last resort. Ahem, actually, I don't think we need to settle things now, Sister Ling, Mo Xiaowan said with a smile. This year is still long, and you don't know how Sister Fei will develop. If, say that the company takes out the contract, and then Sister Fei and Sister Ling renew the contract, how will you set the liquidated damages? You don't know how popular Sister Fei's album will be after it's released. If there are still companies that think that Sister Fei is more valuable than the liquidated damages you set, what will you do if they pay the liquidated damages to poach her? Mo Xiaowan said bewitchingly. Nyo Miling frowned. In the face of benefits, she forgot about Murphy's feelings for the company. Or in her opinion, there was no feeling that could not be betrayed. It was just that the money given was not enough to make up for the price of her betrayal. Obviously, this time, the negotiation between Nyo Miling and Mo Xiaowan reached a deadlock. The two parted on bad terms, but fortunately, they didn't completely fall out with each other. After Mo Xiaowan left, Nyo Miling called the executives of the company for a meeting with a sullen face. After Mo Xiaowan left the company, she didn't stay idle. She rushed to Tingshan without stopping and came to the small studio building that was being renovated. In the end, Mo Xiaowan used the funds given by Yang Yi to buy a 3-story building. The location wasn't prosperous, but it was convenient for transportation. It was suitable for Murphy's studio. However, the entire building had to be renovated. Mo Xiaowan felt that this would be their new base. No matter what, she couldn't treat herself badly. She wore a mask and found Xiao AI, who was supervising the work. The two chatted while checking the progress of the project. Xiao AI, did your family nag you after you resigned? Mo Xiaowan asked with a smile as she held Xiao AI's hand and leaned against her soft body. Nag, how could they not nag? Last weekend, my mother came over and told me that I didn't want a stable job and had to resign. I don't know what I was doing all day. Then she said that I was so tired recently. How could I find a boyfriend in the future? Wan, you have to compensate me. Xiao AI also smiled and said to Mo Xiaowan. Of course. You'll be a veteran of our Sister Fei's studio in the future. Your salary will definitely be much higher than before. For now, you'll have to suffer. Mo Xiaowan pinched Xiao AI's chubby face and then snorted, Men are nothing. If they look down on us, we'll look down on them too. That's right. They force me to go on blind dates all day. I'm so annoyed by those stinky men. Xiao AI echoed. If you ask me, don't listen to your mother. What's the hurry? Let's start our career first, and then slowly choose later. There are plenty of good men. Mo Xiaowan said proudly. Anyway, I don't think the men who come on blind dates are good. But I'm afraid that if I don't get married in a few years, I'll become an old leftover woman. Xiao AI said worriedly. It doesn't matter. I'll protect you. Whoever says you're a leftover woman, I'll beat him to death. Mo Xiaowan waved her pink fist and said fiercely. Okay. Xiao AI snickered. At this time, Mo Xiaojuan's phone rang. She took it out and looked at it. Seeing that it was another call from Nyo Miling, the corners of Mo Xiaojuan's mouth curled up slightly. Looks like it's done. Chapter 230. The contract renewal issue was finally temporarily resolved. Of course, as Mo Xiaowan had expected, the negotiations were temporarily put on hold. Nyo Miling also privately promised Mo Xiaowan that she would not do anything to Murphy in exchange for Murphy's return. In fact, Niu Meiling did compromise on this issue. She was a smart person and quickly distinguished the pros and cons. Since she could not coax or force Murphy to sign a low-level contract, Niu Meiling had to change her mind and treat Murphy as a real platinum singer. Naturally, she could not continue to suppress her, and she had to make a 180-degree turn. Niu Meiling had ordered her subordinates to fully support Murphy's new album. It was fine if they earned less from Murphy. Although Niu Meiling's heart was bleeding, she would never allow Murphy, the ace she still cared about, to fall into someone else's hands after the contract ended. Based on her understanding of Murphy, Niu Meiling felt that as long as she maintained her relationship with Murphy, with so many years of cooperation and friendship, she could firmly tie Murphy and her Tianmei together. However, Niu Meiling only considered the possibility of Murphy jumping ship to another company or another company to poach her family's pillar. She did not think that there was another possibility for Murphy. Establishing her own family. Niu Meiling also did not think that Mo Xiaowan, this audacious girl, would rely on her brother-in-law's financial support during the contract period to poach a few girls from her company and start her own business outside. Of course, Niu Meiling's strategy was not bad. Murphy was indeed easily dominated by feelings. Under her care, she might be reluctant to leave Tianmei. Then, it will depend on your ability, brother-in-law. After Yang Yi sent Murphy back, Mo Xiaowan quietly talked to Yang Yi on the phone. She analyzed the changes in Tianmei and Niu Meiling's thoughts, then laughed and said, "You have to work hard to snatch Sister Fei from Tianmei." "Okay." Yang Yi agreed. Yang Yi was not too worried that Murphy would be reluctant to terminate the contract with Tianmei. What kind of master and disciple relationship could compare to her feelings for him? "He, brother-in-law, I think highly of you. You can use both hard and soft tactics. My sister definitely won't be able to stand it and will agree to it in the end." Mo Xiaowan said meaningfully. "Of course, this will have to be done slowly. A small stream flows long." Cece's bedtime stories had already passed the new release period, and many bookstores had taken this book off the shelves. Only the state-run bookstores continue to sell it, and a few private bookstores that were optimistic still place this fairy tale book in the most conspicuous position. In Guangdong province, the reputation of Cece's bedtime stories gradually spread among the group of parents. There was even a situation where it was difficult to get a book. Fortunately, the people in Sahara reacted quickly and released advertisements for online sales channels in the local influential media. Many parents who had opened online banking took advantage of the bank's activities to give it a try. They registered and logged in to the Sahara Online Mall and bought Cece's bedtime stories. Although the courier fee was included, after deducting the website discount, the price of the online mall was a few yuan lower than that of an ordinary bookstore. With this plan in mind, they gradually realized the benefits of this online mall. Even if they did not buy anything, they still had the mentality of looking and comparing the price of the goods in the online mall with the price in the physical store in reality. In addition, from this month onwards, the online mall specially cooperated with the manufacturers of infant products and children's products to organize activities. In particular, the imported infant products such as milk powder and diapers on the counter were much cheaper than those bought in the supermarket. Seems like it's quite cost-effective? Although many people were deeply wary of online shopping, there were also many people who were moved by the difference in price and chose to buy. Even mothers who did not dare to buy would chat with the mothers around them and tell others about the discount during their leisure time. The fame of the online mall spread little by little. The back-end monitoring staff of the Sahara Online Mall could see that the sales data were increasing exponentially every day. It seemed that these were all driven by Cece's bedtime stories, but the specific analysis was not so. At the end of the day, this was a reflection of the superiority of the online mall's price after reducing the intermediate channels. In any case, the sales of Cece's bedtime stories also began to rise. As more and more people read it, a good reputation began to spread out of Guangdong province. Until one day, a netizen who originally went to the Sahara Online Mall to buy the book Drawing Sword saw the online mall's large banner promoting it. By Yang Yi? Doesn't Yang Yi write military novels? Although he's been playing with crime themes recently, when did he write a fairy tale book? The non-die-hard fan of Yang Yi was curious. He specifically went to the online customer service of the online mall and confirmed that the book was indeed written by Yang Yi. Interesting. Did Yang Yi also write a fairy tale book? The non-die-hard fan was interested. Although he was not a die-hard fan of Yang Yi, he was a very curious person. After buying Drawing Sword, he also bought Shi's Bedtime Stories along the way to save some postage. However, after the delivery of the book, a man in his early 20s held the fairy tale book and was fascinated by it. More than 20 well-written fairy tales fascinated him for 2 days and 2 nights, especially when he saw the story of Sleeping Beauty. His girly heart almost overflowed and he almost could not control his desire to cross-dress. Such a good book must be promoted, but what if he did not know any children or single mothers? There was a way. He excitedly ran to the discussion area of the 2 serialized books, Yu Zue and Prison Break, and posted, "You may not believe it, but Yang Yi has made me obsessed with fairy tales again." The title was very eye-catching. The content was naturally to promote Shi's Bedtime Stories by Yang Yi and recommended everyone to buy it at Sahara Online Mall. As soon as the post was posted, he was scolded badly by the readers who were waiting for the update. "Are you a water army? How could Yang Yi have written a fairy tale book? I'm afraid it's a fake link. Don't click on it, be careful." This non-die-hard reader's ID was naturally not as well known as Mu Yuqing's Mu Yuchen. Despite his strong arguments, it was still difficult to convince everyone. However, when Mu Yuqing saw this post, he vaguely remembered that when he went to Sahara Online Mall last month to study the other party's online shopping ideas, he saw the book Shi's Bedtime Stories. It seemed that it was also promoted to be written by Yang Yi, but because it was children's literature, it did not arouse his interest. But now that Mu Yuqing was on holiday and had nothing to do, he simply followed the link given by this reader. It was really written by Yang Yi. Since he could not wait for the update, he would buy it and read it. Mu Yuqing jumped into the pit excitedly. A few days later, Mu Yuqing reposted the post of the non-die-hard reader who had long disappeared and grandly recommended Shi's Bedtime Stories to millions of readers who were waiting for the update. "It's really written by Yang Yi. It has been confirmed with the customer service. Yang Yi compiled the bedtime stories he told his daughter into a book. It's full of father-daughter love. Although the sales of the book in physical bookstores are not ideal, the quality is definitely not ordinary. The plot is very exciting, and although the wording is simple, Yang Yi's writing is as good as ever. If I had to write a recommendation, I would say, it's suitable for both young and old. Although it's a fairy tale, adults will be fascinated by it." Mu Yuqing was really enthusiastically doing the free promotion work. With a familiar ID like him, many readers could not sit still. Damn, even old Mu has spoken. It seems that I have to buy it. Buy. Based on the fact that it's a real book written by Master Yang Yi, I'll definitely buy it. If I don't buy it, I'm not Yang Jejun. I was wondering why Yang Yi was so weak in updating. It turns out that he has a daughter. Well, let's contribute to our daughter's milk powder money. Go away, who's your daughter? Yang Yi is my father. You guys continue chatting. I'll place the order first. Anyway, Yang Yi's character is guaranteed. You won't lose out or be cheated. Does anyone live near number 81 Hutong on Keonei Street in Beijing? Let's make up the bill together. Save on the postage. In the midst of laughter, Yang Yi's fans were about to bring the sales of Shi's fairy tales to a magical number. Although this would no longer attract media attention and reports, these fairy tales would eventually spread. But this was all in the future. Chapter 231. The weather in Jiang City had become cold. A few days ago, the highest temperature had reached 30 degrees, but after a cool drizzle, the temperature suddenly dropped. Especially at night, Yang Yi, who lived next to the Grand Canal, could feel the coldness in the wind from the balcony. According to the 24 solar terms in traditional Chinese culture, now was the time when the cold dew had passed and the frost had not yet arrived. The weather turned cold, but there was no sign of winter. However, the unpredictable temperature was a nightmare for parents. Although Murphy went back to record songs and the shooting of the MV was scheduled, she still missed her daughter in her heart. Yang Yi was careless and didn't know anything. As a mother, she knew that she was most likely to fall ill at this time of the year except spring. Therefore, she called Yang Yi almost every night and told him to take good care of Shi. Usually, no matter whether it is hot or not, Shi must wear more clothes. Don't let her jump on the bed naked after taking a bath at night. It's better to let her come out of the bathroom when she is wearing pajamas. In fact, not only did Murphy tell Yang Yi, but when Yang Yi picked up Shi from kindergarten, Mr. Mu also told him to pay attention to the child's physical condition. If there was any abnormality, he must go to the hospital in time for treatment and communicate with the kindergarten. Perhaps it was because she practiced with her father every morning. Shi, who kept exercising, was in good physical condition. After a few days, the little girl was still alive and kicking, which made Yang Yi feel a little relieved. However, Shi's little friend still fell ill. Today, when Yang Yi picked up Shi, the little girl sat in the child's seat in the back seat and said to her father unhappily, "Papa, Xi didn't come to kindergarten today." "Why?" Yang Yi asked curiously. "I don't know, but Chen Shuyun said that Xi was sick. Her mom told her that," she said. Yang Yi understood that Lan Xi was sick and went to the hospital, which happened to be the hospital where Chen Shuyun's mother, who was a nurse, worked. Shi, you have to be careful too. Don't kick the blanket off when I cover you with it at night." Yang Yi smiled and said, "Look, that girl didn't come yesterday. Today, Xi is also sick. They probably caught a cold because they were disobedient." She didn't understand the last sentence, but she didn't want to tell her father about it. The little girl pouted and said sadly, "But, Papa, I miss Xi. Will Xi come back?" Cough cough. What do you mean by not coming back? Children's words carry no harm. Fortunately, there were no outsiders in the car. Yang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said to Shi, how can you say that? You can't use the word, not coming back, casually. Why? The innocent little girl looked at her father with her big eyes in confusion. Because... Yang Yi paused for a moment. He was a little speechless. He really couldn't think of any reason, so he could only tell his daughter the truth. Because if someone doesn't come back, in some specific context, such as what you said just now, Xi is sick, it means that someone may die. She couldn't understand her father's long paragraph of words. What context? She couldn't understand. But she still understood the last sentence. The little girl's face suddenly turned pale. She waved her hand in horror and said, "No, she didn't mean that Xi is dead. No." At first, she blamed herself, but the little girl scared herself. She seemed to think that Lan Xi was really going to die. She pursed her lips and her eyes turned red. "I didn't mean that. I hope you can pay attention to the words you use in the future. Don't cause misunderstandings." Yang Yi was driving, so he didn't pay attention. After a while, he heard the little girl in the back seat sobbing in a low voice. "Hey, why are you crying?" Yang Yi saw the little girl wiping her tears and looking pitiful in the rear-view mirror. He quickly found a safe place to stop the car. Under her father's inquiry and comfort, she said in a choked voice, "Papa, I'm afraid." "What are you afraid of?" Yang Yi asked confusedly. The little girl's skin was very white. When she cried, her eyes, nose, and mouth seemed to be stained with rouge. It was a sharp contrast with her white skin. It was lovely and pitiful. "I'm afraid that Xi will die," the little girl said sadly. "No, Xi is just sick. It's not a big deal. She will come to kindergarten soon after she recovers." She, don't think so much. What's more, what you said just now wasn't true." Yang Yi hurriedly comforted. "But I miss Xi. Cece sniffled and said with an aggrieved expression. She was really worried about Lan Xin. Well, wait a minute. Yang Yi thought for a moment. He took out his cell phone and dialed Lan Xin's father's number. After a while, Yang Yi hung up the phone. Under Shi's expectant eyes, he said with a smile, "Well, Papa has asked clearly. Xin Air had a little fever yesterday, so she went to the hospital last night to get an injection. It's not a cold. At present, Xin Air is still resting at home. She may have to rest for a day tomorrow. But do you want to visit Xin Air? Papa can take you there after dinner." She nodded happily. "Yes, I want to go to Xin Air's house. I miss Xin Air so much." Just like that, it was decided. Yang Yi and Lanzhao Kai agreed on a time. Lanzhao Kai was not on a business trip. His daughter was sick, and as the big boss, he was also worried. He had to put his work aside to accompany his daughter. At around 7 in the evening, Yang Yi drove Shi to the Lan family's big villa. "Big brother Lan, your villa is really luxurious." Yang Yi could not help but sigh. No wonder he was a real estate tycoon. "It's not bad, right?" "Haha, the next time these children have a gathering, they can come to my house to play. I don't dare to promise anything else, but I have enough snacks at home." Lanzhao Kai laughed and brought Yang Yi and Shi home. "Xin Air." Shi called out happily when she saw Lan Xin sitting on the sofa eating snacks and watching television. Shi. Lan Xin heard the voice and quickly turned around. When she saw Shi also jumped down excitedly. The two girls hugged each other excitedly. Lanzhao Kai was afraid that Yang Yi would be worried. He smiled and said, "Xin Air is almost recovered. Also, it's not a fever caused by the virus, so there's no need to worry about infection. I asked her mother to take an extra day off from the kindergarten because I was afraid that she would catch a cold outside before she fully recovered." "Xin Air, you scared me. I was so worried about you." She hugged Lan Xin and said with a pout. He. I don't know either. I feel so uncomfortable and sleepy today." Lan Xin giggled and pulled Shi to sit down. The two girls sat side by side like good sisters. "Are you better now?" She asked with concern. Lan Xin took out her snacks and ate them with Shi. She pouted and said, Okay. I went to see a doctor yesterday and then got an injection. It hurts so much." "Ah." When Shi heard the word needle, she remembered the cold shiny needle tip when she made dolls with her parents. "Look." Lan Xin stretched out her left hand and turned it over. She pointed to a needle mark on the back of her hand and said, "It's here. It hurts so much." Shi carefully held Lan Xin's left hand and couldn't help but swallow. "Does it really hurt?" "It hurts so much. I cried." Lan Xin proudly told her ugly story, as if she was a little hero. "But then I fell asleep and it didn't hurt anymore." Yes. Cece still had a scared look on her face. After visiting Lan Xin, Shi's mood finally improved a lot. However, she had a lot to tell her friends about this experience tomorrow. Chapter 232. Murphy had been back for a few days, but she didn't see Jean Ming at the company. Murphy didn't think much about it in the first 2 days because her work was arranged to discuss the plot of the music video corresponding to the songs with the music video director and scriptwriter invited by the company. Obviously, Murphy didn't know how to act. Even if the music video was shot, Murphy would still need to participate in some scenes, but that would only be her natural singing. The company would invite some young actors to play the lead role in the music video, but the script still needed Murphy's consent. However, after the general plot of the music video was discussed, Jean Ming still didn't appear. Murphy finally couldn't take it anymore and asked Mo Xiaowan to ask. "The people over there said that Sister Ling is helping you and Teacher Duan coordinate the schedule, saying that Teacher Duan will take over Teacher Jin's position." Not long after, Mo Xiaowan ran back happily and said with a smile, "Look, sister, is the company starting to pay more attention to you? It was indeed very important. Not only was the shooting of the music video put on the schedule, but Nyo Miling also wanted to take care of Murphy's feelings. She wanted teacher Duan Shurong, who was currently supervising Zhen Zhen's new album, to come back and work with Murphy. Tian Mei was showing her sincerity this time. Seeing that she was going to snatch Zhen Zhen's producer back, Mo Xiaowan was happy. Her previous grievances were all cleared. She felt very good. However, Murphy didn't look very happy. She frowned and thought for a long time before saying to Mo Xiaowan, "Xiaowan, go and tell Sister Ling that I won't change Teacher Jean. I'll work with Teacher Jean for this album." Ah. Mo Xiaowan was a little surprised. She asked puzzledly, "Isn't Teacher Duan better? She's worked with you so many times. Don't you like Teacher Duan the most?" "I like Teacher Duan a lot, and I don't deny that Teacher Duan's level is indeed higher than Teacher Jin's. Of course, Teacher Jean isn't bad either. But the most important thing is that we can't go back on our words." Murphy said to Mo Xiaowan seriously, "Teacher Jean gave me a lot of help in the early stages of this album, and he has completed the arrangement of most of the songs. How can we abandon him now?" Mo Xiaowan hated it when Murphy tried to reason with her. She quickly grabbed Murphy's hand and said, "No problem. Sister, you can choose whichever teacher you want to be your producer. I'll go tell Sister Ling." At Springfield Kindergarten, although it was the weekend, Shishi was still very happy because her little friend, Lon Xian, was finally back. "Xer, I miss you so much." As soon as they saw each other, Shishi and the other little girls ran over happily and held Lon Xian's hand as they spoke excitedly. "Haha, Shishi, didn't you come to my house last night?" "Yes." "Then why do you still miss me?" "But you didn't come yesterday, so I missed you." "Okay, but you didn't miss me when you came back to class after the holidays." Lon Xian said the holidays, but in fact, it was just the weekends. "Yes, yes." She anxiously explained, "I miss you very much." "Haha, well, Shishi, you are my best friend." Lon Xian happily hugged Shishi, although she was not as tall as Shishi. Shishi also happily hugged Lon Xian and said, "Xian, you are also my best friend." At this time, Chen Shiyun, who had just skipped by, turned her head and shouted, "Shishi, how can you say that? I am your best friend." She quickly waved her hand. She pulled Lon Xian and Chen Shiyun up and said, "You are all my best friends." In fact, the scene of Chen Shiyun and Lon Xian fighting for affection often happened. Usually, at this time, young Luoqi's aggrieved voice would be heard. "What about me?" However, she did not appear today. "Where is Chi-Chi?" She found this problem. They did not see young Luoqi until the class started. Fortunately, after Teacher Mu came in, he talked about the situation of the children who were absent today, including young Luoqi. "Today, we are very happy to see Xian come back healthy. However, you may have noticed that 3 children asked for leave today, and Chi-Chi." Teacher Mu named the 3 children, of course, not to blame them. Chi-Chi's father called to tell Teacher Mu that Chi-Chi woke up this morning with a cold and needs to go to the hospital to see a doctor. She and Lon Xian turned their heads and looked at each other. Although the 2 girls were very obedient and did not whisper, they could see the surprise in each other's eyes. "Ah, Chi-Chi is also sick. Recently, influenza has been frequent. Children, you must pay attention to keeping warm at home and in school. If you sneeze or have a runny nose, you must be sure to tell me or your parents quickly." Teacher Mu continued to remind them. However, the girls' minds were no longer on it. After a short lesson on learning pinyin, Shi, Lon Xian, Nan Zhaoyu, and Chen Shiyun gathered together. "Chi-Chi is sick. I want to see Chi-Chi." Lon Xian spoke first, holding Shi's little hand. "Because I'm sick, Shi also came to see me. Chi-Chi is also my good friend. I want to see him. I want to go too." She raised her other little hand high. She looked excited, as if she was signing up for a fun activity. "That's great. I want to see Chi-Chi with Shi." Lon Xian jumped happily. He, yes, let's go together. She also jumped. I want to go too, but my father may not be free. Nan Xiaoyu said with a little frustration, my mother can't drive. Then I can ask my papa to pick you up. Shi's mind flashed and she quickly said, my papa's car is very big. He can take you and your mom. I also want to sit in Shi's father's car. Lon Xian was a little envious. Of course, she didn't think that Shi's father's car was very luxurious. There were more luxurious cars in her garage. The little girl simply felt that it was very interesting to sit with her friends. But my papa's car can't seat too many people. She hesitated and said, my papa's car can seat 4 people. My papa said that he can't seat Xian. Well, I'll ask my father's driver to drive. Lon Xian didn't care. Chen Shiyun, do you want to go together? She turned to look at Chen Shiyun, who had been silent all this time, and asked expectantly. Chen Shiyun pouted and pretended to reluctantly say, well, I'll go too. But my father also has a car, so I don't need to sit in yours. Then let's pinky swear and go see Chi together. She said happily. The several friends happily decided that they would go see each other tomorrow, which happened to be Saturday. However, they didn't know what they were doing. In the evening, when Yang Yi heard that she wanted to visit her friends, he originally wanted to agree. But when he heard that Yang Luoqi had caught a cold, he shook his head. No, how can you do that? Colds are contagious. What if you catch a cold? Yang Yi explained. However, she didn't listen to his explanation this time. She felt wronged and cried. They had all agreed to go see Chi. How could they break their promise? She felt that her father had made her betray her friends, and she cried sadly. As she cried and cried, Yang Yi was swayed by his pitiful daughter's crying. He thought carefully and felt that a cold was not so terrible. Could it be that visiting a patient would cause her to be infected? It seemed that there was no such thing as a 100% probability, right? He himself had never caught a cold before. Moreover, in Yang Yi's heart, the 2 words trust were indeed very important. Whether it was his predecessor or his previous life, it didn't matter if he didn't keep his promise to others, but to his own brothers, he must keep his promise. Thinking about it this way, Yang Yi also felt that he couldn't let Shi go back on her word just because of a little difficulty. Look. Let's go see Chi tomorrow. Daddy was wrong. Shi, Daddy will take you to see Chi tomorrow. Yang Yi made a promise. Shi smiled through her tears. Chapter 233. Shi regarded this matter as an important task. The next morning, Yang Yi woke her up. When the little girl was still in a daze in the warm bed, she muttered to her father, Papa, are we going to see Chi? When they were having breakfast, Cici pestered him again and asked, Papa, when are we leaving? Yang Yi, who didn't know whether to laugh or cry, had to clean up the tableware quickly and began to help Shi contact the parents of several friends. The first one was of course to find Yang Gua to understand Yang Luoqi's current situation. Yang Gua was still very happy to see Shi and the others come. After Yang Yi finished the phone call, he said to Shi with a smile, Good news, Chi-Chi's cold is now much better. She basically doesn't sneeze anymore, but she still has a little cough. Let's go to Chi-Chi's home to see her later. Okay. The little girl happily danced on the floor. She didn't even know where her heart had flown to. Later, Yang Yi called Lan Xian, Chen Shiyun, and Nan Xiaoyu's father one by one. Lanzhao Kai was not at home. He was on a business trip again, but he knew about this matter and gave Yang Yi the phone number of his driver. Lanzhao Kai attached great importance to his daughter. He didn't care too much about other children's illness. He just let Lan Xian visit them if she wanted to. Chen Shiyun had a setback. Chen Guoqiang helplessly told Yang Yi that her mother didn't allow Chen Shiyun to visit Shi. Chen Guoqiang's idea was actually similar to Yang Yi's, but Chen Shiyun's mother was a nurse. She knew how terrible the flu was. No matter how much Chen Shiyun cried, she didn't allow it. As for Nan Zhaoyu, Yang Yi actually wanted his parents to be like Chen Shiyun's mother. After all, when he thought about how his daughter had taken the initiative to invite another boy to sit in her car, even though Yang Yi wouldn't go as far as to refuse his daughter, he still felt uncomfortable in his heart. However, Nan Zhaoyu's mother was very happy. She gave her home address to Yang Yi and assured him that Yang Yi could come and pick her son up any time. Yang Yi did not know that Nan Zhaoyu's mother did not even consider whether the cold was contagious. She was worried that her son would stay at home and recite poems every day. She was worried that her son would become a bookworm like his father and only get married when he was 40 or 50 years old. That would be terrible. Nan Zhaoyu's mother was already thankful that this brat could be invited out to play by a girl. How could she care about anything else? Of course, Yang Yi did not know what Nan Zhaoyu's mother was thinking. If he knew, he would not let Nan Zhaoyu get in his car. Well, Chen Shiyun can't go now, but Xian Air and Nan Zhaoyu can go. Yang Yi reported to Shi. Chen Shiyun can't go? The little girl was a little disappointed, but she soon recovered her happy attitude because she had two friends. Then, Papa, let's go quickly. Yang Yi drove Shi to Nan Zhaoyu's house to pick up the little boy, and then to Lan Xian's house. I want to sit in Shi's father's car. I don't want to sit in yours. Lan Xian saw that Nan Zhaoyu's mother did not follow, and there was an empty seat in the car, so she wanted to sit with her friends. Children can't sit in the front passenger seat, Yang Yi kindly advised. However, Lan Xian pouted and kept holding Shi's little hand. Mr. Yang, why don't we let the children sit in the boss car? The driver gave a solution. He drove the Lan family's limousine out. Yang Yi temporarily parked his tyrant at the Lan family's house, and then everyone sat in the luxury car. Everyone was happy. Lan Xian, Shi, and Nan Zhaoyu sat together. The three children were all excited, rolling and playing on the luxurious sofa in the limousine's limousine. Their little feet stepped on the leather sofa, causing creases to appear one after another. Yang Yi really couldn't bear to look at them. He helplessly turned his head away, allowing them to chatter and make a fuss. I told you that Chen Shiyun is a coward. For some reason, Lan Xian denounced Chen Shiyun, who was absent. She snorted and said, "She doesn't even dare to come. If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have invited her." Nan Zhaoyu was more shy and usually didn't speak loudly. However, when he was with his friends, he was slightly more lively. I really want Chen Shiyun to come too. Chen Shiyun, Xian Air, Nan Zhaoyu, and Chi, let's play together. Shi said. You said too little. There's also your Shi. Lan Xian giggled. With the address, Lan Zhao Kai's driver quickly sent them to Yang Luoqi's house. Of course, Yang Guo was an ordinary university professor. It was impossible for her to live in a big villa like Lan Zhao Kai's. Their house was a small apartment with an elevator. The house was more than 100 square meters. It was neither big nor small. Yang Luoqi's mother opened the door for the children. Yang Luoqi's mother, Wu Yu, was an ordinary white-collar worker. However, she was delicate and beautiful. Her personality was similar to Yang Guo's. She was gentle and virtuous. It was said that she could dance. Yang Luoqi learned from her. When the door opened, Wu Yu was wearing an apron and preparing lunch. Note 1. Hello, Chi-Chi's mother. Shi, Lan Xian, and Nan Zhaoyu had all seen her before. They crowded at the door and greeted her sweetly when they saw her. Wow, you're all here? Hello. Wu Yu laughed. Chi, come out quickly. Shi, Xian Air, and Zhaoyu are here to see you. The little guys swarmed in. Yang Yi also greeted Wu Yu and Yang Guo, who had just stood up from the sofa. At this time, the door of a room opened. A little girl ran out happily. Her little face, which was a little sickly, seemed to be a lot more energetic and rosy at the moment. Shi, Xian Air, Zhaoyu. Yang Luoqi happily took her friend's hand. Although she didn't shout like she and Lon Xian, she was still happy. Chi, I missed you so much. She's, I missed you so much, was almost her catchphrase. I missed you too, Chi. Are you feeling better? Lon Xian's voice was loud, and the whole room echoed with her voice. The two girls dominated Yang Luoqi, and Nan Zhaoyu could only watch with concern. Yes, but I still cough. It's a little uncomfortable. Yang Luoqi nodded, but still touched her throat and said softly. Her voice was still a little hoarse, but with the concern of her friends, Yang Luoqi felt that her illness was almost cured. Looking away from the children, Yang Gua smiled and said to Yang Yi, "Why don't you have lunch with me?" "How could I? There are so many people." Yang Yi was polite. "Why are you being so polite?" Yang Gua patted Yang Yi's shoulder and said with a smile, "Wu Yu heard that you were coming, so she went to buy a lot of ingredients. She even thought of ways to make delicious food for the children. Lunch is already ready." "Yang Yi, my cooking skills may not be as good as yours, but since you're here, you should try it and then give me some pointers." Wu Yu smiled generously. No. Yang Yi didn't refuse this time. He smiled and said, "Okay, then this afternoon, we'll have lunch at your house. Thank you for your hard work, sister-in-law." Yang Yi went over to the children to announce the news. Shi and the others all cheered. "Chi, we're going to eat at your house." She said happily, "Your mom's cooking is also delicious." He, I'm also happy." Yang Luoqi, a quiet little girl, couldn't help but jump up and down with her friends. Chapter 234. At noon, Wu Yu's cooking skills were actually quite good. The little ones ate very happily. As they dug into the rice, their faces were covered with rice grains. Then they looked at each other and giggled at each other's embarrassing appearance. After the little ones finished eating, they threw down their bowls and chopsticks and ran to the living room to play. The adults were still eating slowly, watching the little ones play crazily while chatting. After Wu Yu asked Yang Yi for some tips on cooking, she couldn't help but be curious. "Yang Yi, where are you from? How can you cook from everywhere? And from your accent, I can't tell where you're from." Yang Yi was in a trance for a moment, then he smiled and said, "I'm from Anqing, but I went to the southwest to serve as a soldier a long time ago. After I retired, I traveled all over the country, so my accent has long been mixed up. How can I tell? I can cook so many dishes, of course. I learned from eating and drinking all these years." In a trance, he thought of his hometown. His hometown was a poor mountain village in Paigua County, Paigua City, Anqing Province. Because his predecessor didn't do well after he retired, he didn't have the face to see his hometown parents, so he didn't return home for 2 or 3 years. He only called back to say hello during the new year and sent home the money he saved. Yang Yi was now rich and successful, but he didn't plan to go home. After all, he wasn't the real Yang Yi. He didn't know how to face the parents and siblings of this body. Out of the mentality of compensation, Yang Yi had been sending money home, thousands, tens of thousands, but he wouldn't give too much all at once. It wasn't that he was stingy, but mainly because his predecessor didn't usually give too much. If he suddenly sent hundreds of thousands, his parents and villagers in the poor mountain village would be scared and worry about him even more. Yang Yi felt that this matter had to be planned slowly. "By the way, speaking of your accent, Yang Gua, you're from Yu Province, right? And Wu Yu, I heard that you are also from Guangdong Province. Why did you come to work in Jiangnan?" Yang Yi asked them in order to change the topic. "Yes, we are from Yu Province. But because we were hired to study at the University of Jiangqing, Wu Yu felt wronged. She quit her job and came to Jiangqing with me. It can be considered a fresh start." Yang Gua gently patted Wu Yu's hand and said. Wu Yu smiled and said, "Yang Gua has a doctorate and has even become a university teacher. As someone who has never been to university, of course I have to follow my teacher." "So what if I didn't go to college?" Yang Yi laughed. "I didn't go to college either. I didn't even finish high school before I joined the army. Yes, I also said that it's nothing. Academic qualifications don't represent everything, but she still cares a little. Yang Guo lovingly glanced at Wu Yu and explained to Yang Yi, furthermore, it's not like Wu Yu didn't have the opportunity to go to university. It's just that she's an orphan, so she gave up on the notice and started working early. When Yang Yi heard this, his body couldn't help but tremble. Although he had parents in this body, he was indeed an orphan in his previous life. After knowing Wu Yu's background, Yang Yi inexplicably felt that Wu Yu was very close. Of course, there was no other meaning. Yang Yi also hid this emotion. Wu Yu didn't want to continue talking about this topic. She said reproachfully, "Okay, let's not talk about me. Yang Yi, last time Yang Guo said that you write novels." After the rearrangement, Murphy finally met Jean Ing-ming. Because she had spent too much time fighting with the company, Murphy didn't plan to rest this weekend and continued to record songs. "Sorry, Teacher Jean, I delayed your reunion with your daughter this weekend." When Murphy knew that the company had only made a new plan and didn't tell Jean Ing-ming, she didn't plan to tell him about the twists and turns behind the scenes. However, although Murphy didn't say it, Jean Ing-ming still vaguely sensed it. After all, he was much older than Murphy and had experienced the real storms of the entertainment industry. But smart people wouldn't voice out their suspicions, as long as the result was good. He sat there as usual and said with a smile, "It doesn't matter. During this time, I've carefully studied all of Mr. Mu Ziang's works, and I've learned something." "Oh, Teacher Jean, please tell me." Murphy was interested. "I found that Mu Ziang's current works show two different styles of arrangement. One is very simple. For example, Long Time No See, Mr. Mu Ziang only used two instruments, piano and violin, to arrange the song. The other is like First Dream, the instruments used are more complex. In addition to the rich electric sound of the electronic organ, there are also instruments like drums." Jean Ing-ming said. Murphy nodded gently. She had listened to these songs carefully, so she could naturally distinguish them. "Then I have a bold idea. Is it that among the songs written by Mr. Mu Ziang, the female songs tend to be more colorful, while the male songs like to be interpreted with simple instruments?" Jean Ing-ming excitedly arranged the troops on the table with teacups. Murphy raised an objection to this. "Teacher Jean, what about Across the Sea to See You? The accompaniment of this song is basically done by the guitar. And, in my voice, the accompaniment of this song is also very simple, and it is also arranged by the piano." "Yes, the question you raised is very interesting." Jean Ing-ming happily took out 2 cups and moved them from the side with more to the side with less. Then he said, "I made a bold assumption. Were Across the Sea to See You, and, in my voice, originally written by Mr. Mu Ziang for male singers. Based on the analysis of the lyrics, these 2 songs do not have obvious gender markers. Then I tried it in my own recording studio and found that these 2 songs also have their own charm when sung by male singers." Jean Ing-ming seemed to have found a new world. He grinned from ear to ear. "Of course, my singing is relatively ordinary, and I need to lower the key. So I was wondering if Mr. Mu Ziang had written these 2 songs from the perspective of a man, but accidentally found that these 2 songs were more suitable for you, Murphy, so he changed the arrangement behind the scenes." Jean Ing-ming said with some regret, "Unfortunately, this is just my personal guess. If I could communicate with Mr. Mu Ziang face to face, I would really like to discuss it with him." Although this research was not particularly meaningful, in the eyes of Jean Ing-ming, who was obsessed with music, it was no less than playing an escape room puzzle game. There will be a chance in the future. Although Mr. Mu Ziang hides his identity, he is in Jiang City after all. Teacher Jean, maybe you will have a chance to meet him. Murphy could only comfort Jean Ing-ming. "This is nothing. I just hope that Mr. Mu Ziang can produce more works, so that I can have more materials to study." Jean Ing-ming laughed heartily. "Sorry for nagging so much with you. Let's get to work quickly." Chapter 235. Drip, 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 drip. Since the morning, dark clouds had covered the sky. The heavy rain in the morning had stopped for a while in the afternoon, but not long after, it started to drizzle again. The raindrops were like crystal beads hanging from the eaves of the coffee shop, dripping onto the dark green lawn. Contrary to the pale and hazy world in the rain, the coffee shop was very cozy. The chandeliers emitted a pale yellow light, which made the originally cold and lonely air feel unusually warm. She liked the rain very much. She leaned against the booth by the window, staring at the drizzle outside with her big eyes. She was very engrossed. From the back, the girl with her silky smooth and soft hair hanging down to her slender waist, holding her chin, seemed to be a miniature version of a goddess who was thinking about her worries. She looked out of the window, which always made men worry about her. What kind of distance was she thinking about? Of course, the girl just liked to watch the rain. Her father didn't allow her to step on the water outside with her little rain boots, so she could only watch quietly from inside. Yang Yi withdrew his gaze from his daughter and looked at Ding Xiang, who was opening the coffee cans one by one to check if the coffee beans inside were damp. What did you say to me just now? Ding Xiang was checking the coffee beans while talking to Yang Yi, but Yang Yi was so engrossed in watching his daughter that he didn't hear what Ding Xiang said. Brother Yang, I said that Sister Murphy seems to be very popular recently. My roommates in the dormitory are all talking about her. Ding Xiang smiled. But I didn't dare to tell them, because I have to keep it a secret for Sister Murphy. Yang Yi took a piece of paper and a ballpoint pen from the bar counter, and wrote down a sentence that he thought of just now. He asked casually, "Really? What did you guys talk about?" You sit by the window and watch the rain, and the people who watch the rain look at you from behind. The curtain of rain decorates your window, you light up other people's lives. Yang Yi finished writing and looked at it with satisfaction. This was a poem that he had changed based on the current situation. The original work was called Cliffhanger. Of course, it was also very famous, so there was no need for further introduction. However, Yang Yi wanted to change the name of the poem to Daughter. Obviously, the new name was much worse than the original name, so Yang Yi didn't write it. He just admired the 4 lines of words he wrote, then crumpled it into a ball and threw it into the trash can next to him. They're discussing Sister Murphy's new song. They said that Sister Murphy used to be very powerful, but then, she couldn't do it anymore. Sister Murphy had a hard time, and now that there's a new song out, they think that Sister Murphy has a chance to become popular again. Ding Xiang said. Your roommates also watch TV? Yang Yi's interest was piqued. No, they just saw some reports on the internet and then said it. However, there are classmates in our class who watched the replay and deliberately learned Sister Murphy's song. They all said that it was written by Mu Ziyang. Isn't that you, Brother Yang? Ding Xiang said. Yang Yi nodded. Ding Xiang knew about his other identity, so there was no need to hide it. I think that song, Crossing the Sea to See You, is very good. I just don't know when Sister Murphy will release a new album. When the time comes, Brother Yang will definitely get that disc, right? Then I can play this song in the shop, and the customers will definitely like it. Ding Xiang said excitedly, and even hummed a few words. Although most of the time, the audio equipment in the shop was used by Yang Yi, if Yang Yi was not in the shop, Ding Xiang would also play some soothing music for the customers, so gradually, Ding Xiang also learned to appreciate music. However, she would sing out of tune, and it was the kind of bizarre out of tune that could be used in funny videos. Listening to Ding Xiang humming out of tune, Crossing the Sea to See You, Yang Yi's forehead appeared a few black lines. Ahem. Yang Yi changed the topic. Ding Xiang, there are not many customers today. You don't have to stay here, go back and rest. When it was not raining, there were a few students who came to drink coffee and study. The coffee shop's environment was good, and it was warmer than the library. But now that it was raining, where would there be customers? No, it's the weekend. Anyway, there is no class. I can read in the coffee shop and help Brother Yang entertain some sudden customers. Ding Xiang smiled. Speak of the devil. On a rainy day, there really was a customer who came in the rain. Ding Xiang pouted her lips, and Yang Yi saw a slightly bent figure outside the door, gradually becoming clear in the rain. Putting away the umbrella, the person pushed open the glass door and walked in. Although the door was opened and closed quickly, the moment when the cold wind blew in, she, who was sitting next to her, could not help but shiver. "Hello. Welcome." Ding Xiang dutifully greeted the customer. The person who came was a middle-aged man in a neat woolen suit. He looked to be in his 50s or 60s. After taking off his jazz hat, half of his white hair was revealed, but the wrinkles on his face were not obvious, and his rosy face looked very healthy. "Hello." He nodded gently to Ding Xiang, and then began to ask about the menu and coffee. She was not very interested in adult matters. After curiously looking at the person who came in, she turned her head back and continued to look out the window with interest. However, not sure if it was because of the wind when the door opened, the little girl sneezed softly. Achoo! The sound was not loud. Yang Yi was looking at the person who came in, and his ears were listening to the conversation between Ding Xiang and the other party, so he did not pay attention. She also rubbed her little nose, not caring at all. "Then I'll order this Santos. Please heat it up a little. The weather is a little too cold," the person said softly to Ding Xiang. His accent was obviously not local, but there were many foreigners in the university town, so Yang Yi did not ask for more details. Ding Xiang quickly nodded. She took out the coffee beans from the coffee can, shook the hand mill, and began to grind the coffee beans. While waiting, the person glanced at Yang Yi, perhaps thinking that Yang Yi was a customer like himself, and nodded at Yang Yi in a friendly manner. However, when he curiously looked at the decorations in the shop, he was not surprised to see the piano placed next to it. His eyes lit up. This is Theodore?" The person seemed to be in disbelief that an expensive Theodore grand piano would be placed in an inconspicuous coffee shop. He could not help but walk up and take a closer look. He even took off his gloves and reached out to touch the logo on the piano, as if to identify the authenticity of the piano. When he recognized that it was the real Theodore, he looked around the coffee shop as if to evaluate whether the environment was a little bad. Yang Yi did not care. He glanced at the other party and then looked away. He could touch it as he pleased. After all, such a heavy piano could not be taken away under his nose. Of course, the other party did not look like a thief. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.